Nobody can hear me because I had my mic turned off. Great. So we'll start that again. We're going to be doing some Genesis, creating some characters in a fantasy setting. And I figure we're going to do this as kind of a walkthrough. We're going to go just step by step through character creation in Genesis, so that both us and you guys who might watch this get kind of an idea of how you might be able to create fantasy characters. So I've got my friends Chris and Jose here. If you guys have been following me on YouTube, you'll know them from the Sunday Sandbox Edge of the Empire campaign, playing Star Wars over there. And we've done some various other things in the Fantasy Flight game Star Wars, as well as Genesis game systems, and we'll continue to do so. So I'm excited about that. But let's get into some character creation. So the first thing that we need to do in the book, there's essentially a 7-step process for character creation. The first step is determining your background. And so there's going to be a series of questions that we're going to have the characters answer. And we're going to just kind of do this in like a free form way. So it's not going to be, a huge deal. And they're not like specific, and there's no mechanical benefits like there might be in, say, 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons to having a background. But because Genesis is a more sort of narrative style game, they can come into play later, especially in the use of story points, which we'll talk about later. So the first thing we need to do is determine answers to a couple of questions. And the very first one is, where does your character come from? Now, I haven't given you guys any information as of yet in the setting. So I'll do that now, just a very little bit, but feel free to run with this. You can absolutely create anything in this world, because I only have a very basic framework. So we kind of can create this all together as we go. So the way the continent is set up is, in the south, there is a major jungle, and it's the jungle. The dominant race within that jungle empire is the elves, and their city, their realm is known as Teldrassil. And there's a major sort of elven city within Teldrassil by the same name. And then there's a number of different settlements, small settlements. Pictured is very sort of influenced by like Aztec, Mayan, sort of Mesoamerican culture and influence. So it's very brutal, very hierarchical. The gods play a major role in the world and how you interact in the world. And it's a very warrior, martial culture. But we also have magic, and those that can do magic in this setting tend to be a little more powerful. They tend to be viewed as important. They tend to be viewed as those that will eventually lead society. So when it says, where does your character come from? That can be as broad or as specific as you want. It could just be as simple as, my character comes from, one of the small settlements or villages. They're nomadic, or they come from the capital city, which is basically in a lake within, like an island within a lake. And it's very much like what Mexico City turned into. It was, I forget what they called it back in the Aztec days. Can't pronounce it, but it's very much like that. And then there's a lot of tribute states, but there's all of the other races around as well. So what do you guys think? Where would your characters come from? Maybe Chris, we'll start with you.
So I had been thinking, maybe this doesn't fit though, but I had been thinking definitely a small tribe in the jungle, one of the small villages. And I was thinking one on like the coastline of the sea.
Yep.
but maybe it needs to be the shore of the lake. If
No, there is a sea on the southern coast.
okay,
Yeah, so that's fine. You would be kind of further out then from the main city. The city is more centrally located within that lake, but yeah, certainly you would yeah, that's fine. So you kind of a
that's
coastal
perfect.
settlement.
Yeah, yeah, something kind of, like I'm envisioning place like video I've seen of like Costa Rica and places like that where the jungle really comes right up almost to the edge
Mhm.
of the sea, and
Yeah,
um,
totally.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Perfect. Okay, great. And so what well, we'll get to this later, but yeah, that's perfect. So, okay, so mostly a coastal settlement. That's good. And Jose, what about you? What about your character? What do you think just kind of general concept where your character would come from?
I was thinking like deep in the jungle. Maybe he came from like a warrior tribe that they guard like temples or something like that.
Okay. So the main temple certainly would be in the main city of Teldrassil, and that would be probably the epitome of where you would want to be. But yeah, I think it would make sense that like you could be like maybe a nomadic warrior type tribe that sort of guards the various shrines within the jungle itself, and the shrines are rumored to be sources of power. So any of those people that can kind of tap into the raw power that the jungle gives and can harness that, those would be extremely important and sacred places. So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Cool. And all right, perfect. So I think that's fine for now. I think we can leave it as simple as that. And so we'll go on to the next question then, which is, who is your character's family? Right. So, did you grow up with a lot of siblings? Were you an only child? Do you have parents? Like, who were they? And by the way, for anybody watching at home who might be interested, these questions are on page 35 of the Genesis Core rulebook. So,
Found that yet.
yep. Yeah. Left, right hand column says background question. So Jose, maybe we'll start with you. Who's your character's family?
I didn't think of the tribe name.
What's that?
No, I was saying I didn't really think of the tribe name.
That's okay. You don't necessarily have to think of a tribal name, but like, if you had a family, would they have been warriors like yourself? Would you have like a father who was a shaman or a great warrior? Were they, kind of just they don't have much standing?
What I was thinking is, I don't remember the name of the movie, but there was a movie I watched where like the kids would take a test and then they were sent to live with certain people as like let's say I was a warrior, so I lived with the warriors, and maybe one of my siblings lived with like the people who cook, or they do the hunting and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you mean. That's that sci-fi channel or that sci-fi book, I think. Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. So so you kind of tested essentially and became a warrior?
Yeah.
Yep. All right, fantastic. Would your family be like generationally, like they would have been those that guard these shrines and these temples, or is this like a new thing that you guys came into?
I would think generation.
Okay. Sweet. All right, that makes sense. Cool. So then generational sort of warriors, would your like father or mother have been like a shaman or a leader, or are you guys just really just good warriors, but maybe not leading the tribe?
I would say maybe like the father was like a gatherer, like he gathered food, and the mom was like a shaman. So the whole being a warrior thing was like different. Like that never really happened in the family.
Okay. Cool. And that sort of ties into the next question, but before we do that, we'll jump back to Chris. Chris, did you have kind of a concept of like who your character's family is?
I didn't, but I think I do now.
All right.
So I think her tribe is really close knit. I think it's that saying about takes a village.
Yep.
And I think maybe they are well respected in the tribe.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's probably a line of like, I was thinking of her being a like an alchemist type, so I could see that being something that would be handed down from generation to generation. And so maybe she apprenticed with her grandmother and her mother,
Mm-hmm.
so it's one of those family things. And I think she probably has a good sized family. I mean, aside from the fact that the whole village, is that way.
Sure.
But like I think a pretty good sized family. So there's probably, other positions that maybe her father's a
Mm-hmm.
elder or something like that.
Cool. All right. And so, like, do you think that when you talk about alchemy, in a setting like this, alchemy would probably be something that would be somewhat common in the main city, right? Within the temple complexes, within the centers of learning. But what do you think alchemy would look like maybe in this coastal village? What would that mean?
I actually think in this case, it's more of the apothecary
Mm-hmm.
thing that they talked about in the book. Like they're using things from nature, to create the things that they're creating.
Right.
So truly living off the land, which it's interesting because to me it's almost like going druidic too, right?
Yeah.
But sort of that, I think, using things from nature and combining them in ways that create reactions.
Gotcha.
As opposed to chemicals, and using like every bit of the plant as natives do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or the animal or whatever it is. So using different things for different purposes, but combining them in ways that result in potions and cool stuff.
Nice. Okay. And so keep in mind, there is also an apothecary tier 1 talent, which we may get to later, in the Terrinoth book on page 84. I don't know if it's in the core book as well.
Right. And that was exactly what I was thinking, was like kind of lean toward the apothecary side.
And I believe the alchemy skill is on page 57 of the core book. So that's cool. And so, again, for anybody who's watching, I'll probably go back and if you're watching this on YouTube, there will probably be annotations and whatever on here so you can reference it. But yeah, alchemy is on page 57 of the core book under general skills. So I'm just going to look at that here.
Yeah, and so and in thinking about that, it talks about the kit and the lab thing. So I mean, I think the lab would be more of an outdoor kitchen kind of thing.
Yep.
And then of course the kit would just be whatever she carries with her.
Yep. Cool. All right. I'm just taking it. Different potions. Oh, cool. All right. Interesting. Okay. So, and it looks like what you could do with alchemy is kind of, in a way, take things like equipment or even maybe spells, and work that into some kind of potion. So we will kind of look at that if it becomes relevant in this session, or if your characters make it through this session, at the end here, we will see if how that might come into play later. Cool. Okay,
great,
fantastic. So like an alchemist, an herbalist, and I guess last question is your family, was that like you said that was sort of a tradition, like that's something that was passed down, or like your mother, your father?
Passed down on the matriarchal side.
Okay.
So like her grandmother and her mother and maybe other women in the tribe too, but primarily them, and then maybe, maybe dad does something else.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I think that makes sense. And we can flesh all that out later. All right. So Chris, we'll stick with you then, because this will tie in. What is your character's social standing? Right? Are they a respected member of the community and culture? Unremarkable, an outcast, shunned, something like that. Basically, what did you do sort of before you became an adventurer? And what we're gonna do, just for some reference, is this session will essentially try to become the start of the Cataclysm and the start of your role as an adventurer, essentially. So think of it kind of like in real time. Like, okay, my character right now would be doing whatever that backstory would normally be.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, I think her standing's probably pretty good. Like I said, probably fairly respected. Maybe right now more respected because of who she's related to than of any laurels of her own.
Mm-hmm.
And I think their primary function is probably helping to protect the village, as well as primarily probably medicine type stuff.
Yeah.
Keeping the village healthy, but also coming up with things that help protect, alchemical weapon type of, apothecary weapon kind of things.
Cool. Okay. And how do you think that would, like, where would that put you in sort of the social pecking order within your village?
I mean, so I think she'd be respected, but there's probably people who are keeping an eye to see if she's worthy of the respect and the position that she has.
Okay. And so, like, there would probably be like a tribal elder that actually leads your village, but you guys would be considered maybe like a respectable and useful family within that village.
Right.
Like, people would come to you. Maybe I wonder, would they come to you guys for your sort of your typical like midwife kind of stuff, but also for your typical healing and all that?
I feel like, I mean, maybe they work hand in hand with the tribe shaman too, for those things, because there'd be like their ritual aspects, but like, yeah, we'd have the actual healing aspects. So
okay, and you would have the technical knowledge of it, and then later on you'll get the magical knowledge of it as well. Kind of. Okay, cool.
I kind of see her, I guess that would, like, in today's terms, she'd be maybe like the doctor who just finished school.
Nice.
Right? And has to, show that they actually know how to put what they know to work. Kind of, maybe that's kind of a good correlation. But yeah, like, I see her earning her way, but like having that respect of having learned what she needs to know and being there and helping with things probably her whole life, helping with bringing kids and stuff, but ready to launch on her own, maybe.
Nice. Okay. All right, cool. I think we'll go with that. Jose, how about your character? What do you think your character's sort of social standing within your tribe would be?
I would think he's kind of like a scoundrel, like they know that he can fight and that he can protect them, but at the same time he would like take off and just do like random things. So
yep. Okay. So maybe kind of looked at as like a wild card. So like he would he's not exactly what's the word? He's not exactly like disliked, but maybe there isn't a full level of trust in him, but because he can fight, he's sort of proves himself on the ground, so to speak.
Yeah, that sounds very good.
Okay, cool. So definitely part of that warrior culture. And the way I conceptualize it is that the warrior that you have like the leaders, and they generally come from either the warrior or the priest kind of culture. They're either, a shaman, a great shaman, or a great warrior, and that's how they became their tribal elder. And then usually what will happen is if you're controlling Teldrassil, you either basically took over the city by coup or through a popular sort of uprising, right? Like you had the people on your side, you come in and say, I'm the ruler now. And that's either through bloodshed or because the people there are supporting you. So so warriors and shaman are important, but that's also somewhat of a dangerous position, a dangerous lifestyle, you know. Cool. All right, good. So you guys aren't necessarily special, but at the same time, not like a low rung of the totem pole kind of. All right, and then next question is, how old is your character? So Chris, what do you think?
That's a good question. Young, I guess. I mean, you know.
Yep. I mean, because so your elves, and we'll get to that later, obviously, step by step. But within that context, you're thinking fairly young, like what would be considered like a teenager, kind of.
Like maybe like a late teen in our terms, or early 20s. So probably 130, 150, something like that.
Right. Yeah. And just for the sake of sort of clarity, and so everybody has a baseline, I figure elves would be similarly long-lived, like they would be in D&D, Tolkien, whatever, right?
Typical, right?
Yeah, because we're not technically setting it in Terrinoth, but yeah.
Yeah, so I see her as being at that age where she's where she'd just be starting to live as an adult.
Okay, cool.
In the tribe, like to start to have her own job or whatever, in her own.
Sure. Will have become skilled enough that she can be relied upon on her own, it sounds like.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, as opposed to, like she's not apprenticing anymore, so people maybe are starting to come to her for things.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, I think that works. And Jose, what do you think? How old would your character be?
I was thinking he's probably like mid 40s to like early 50s, so he's still like really young as of now.
Okay. Yep. So like in terms of sort of like the like in elven years or whatever, he would be like
he's
like a little bit older.
Warrior,
yeah.
But he just, as an elf, they look at him as a child, so.
Yep. Cool. All right. Gotcha. Nice. All right, that's good. Okay, and so we have two more questions. I'm not going to do the very last question, which is, why did your character leave home? Because that is going to be determined for you. But the second to last question is, what does your character think about the world? Your answer could be very general, cynical attitude towards everyone they meet, or specific to the setting. They hate the unjust rule of this says the Federation of Soul, which I don't know what that is. That must be from one of one of Fantasy Flight Games IP. You could even ask and answer this question multiple times, picking a different aspect of the setting each time. So what I'll say, we'll just keep it general, right? What does your character think about the world? And so before you answer that, I'll give you just kind of a general idea of the way I conceive the world before the Cataclysm. There's two great elven empires to the east and the west. You guys, Teldrassil lies to the east, if I remember my map that I created way back in high school. The southeastern part of the continent, and it's big and it's powerful, but it's somewhat isolated. They don't often interact much beyond their borders. Within Teldrassil itself, though, you have a mix of the other races, but the elves are dominant. So, there are orcs, there are humans, there are dwarves. Very few dwarves in Teldrassil. They tend to be way up in the north, but occasionally you will find them. And gnomes. And gnomes in this setting tend to be, they're more tinkers and inventors. They live on islands off the coast. So, Chris, your people may have had maybe some more interaction with gnomes than possibly Jose's character, only because you guys are a coastal village, you may have seen gnomish trading ships. There are also humans. Humans are kind of everywhere. They typically, they're most popular within the Midlands, which is kind of to your northern border. Humans are everywhere. So of course they're in the jungles of Teldrassil as well. Typically humans are mostly slaves, not all the time, but they typically function as the slave labor along with any captured enemies from your tribes. So it's weird, within slave society, it's somewhat egalitarian in that you could be an orc, you could be a human, you could be an elf, and you could still be a slave. But depending on your value, you may work or you may get sacrificed, to the gods to give, your warriors more power. And the common belief within your culture is that when you sacrifice a human, it feeds that energy into the land, and into the, if you're part of the religious sect, it feeds it to the gods, right? But if you're not part of the religious sect, so to speak, and you more are in tune with nature, that life force goes into nature and then you can harness it. So
I like it.
Human sacrifice is a thing, and it's not considered, it's considered noble. It's considered, if you're going to get captured, that's how you want to go. You want to get sacrificed. You don't want to die a inglorious death. That being said, if you die in battle, that's a glorious death, and that's okay. So anyway, so with that being said, how do you guys kind of see the world or see your surroundings right now?
Well, how do you see how likely is it that like a little tribe, for instance, like mine, would have traveled outside of their tribal vicinity?
I guess it depends. A tribe in and of itself would likely travel, especially a coastal one, because you guys would probably have some kind of boats or ships, and you would be going along the coast, fishing, trading, whatever, right? But within your own family, your own culture, who knows, right?
Right.
So I guess that's more up to you.
So maybe I'd let Jose go first.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
a little bit.
what I was thinking is like he doesn't know too much about the outside world. Like whenever he goes out of the jungle, is to escort the people who gather food and stuff like that to little outposts so they can trade. So he's talked to some of the humans, and maybe he knows a little bit, something here and there, but he never been to the city. He's only seen the city from afar, so he's curious, but that's about it.
Okay, so your character has only limited travel. He only knows maybe you said he's been to the city, so you would have seen the great city of Teldrassil, or no?
He's seen the city from afar. He's
okay.
been to outposts outside the city. But
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. And so, that would be like a sight to behold. I mean, the great city of Teldrassil, built on the island within the Great Lake, with essentially a causeway connecting it. I mean, this is a big deal. And there would be a great big sort of pyramid citadel in the middle. Also, throughout the jungle, the shrines that you guys would have, they could be anywhere from very sort of small, primitive rock, formations, or, groves built out of trees and plants, to great big pyramids that were built, long time ago. So very much like an Aztec sort of Maya influence. Cool. So yeah, so Jose, you've had sort of limited mobility, it sounds like, but are probably somewhat in tuned. You would have heard things, you would have seen a few things based on, you know, your limited travel, capturing slaves, raiding, whatever, you know, just fighting in general.
That sounds pretty good. I like it so far.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So Chris, what do you think? Do you have any
Well,
ideas?
I think being healers and being people who are gathering, hunter gatherers, obviously,
Mhm.
if they're living off the land and the sea.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking maybe like maybe they've had some association, like you said, with the gnomes, and maybe that's where she's getting some of her ideas for vehicles, if you will, for delivering her potions,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
like
and go ahead.
innovating a bit, right?
Yep.
And so she's probably interacted with others more so, and I think for her she's probably really curious.
Okay.
I think she sees others as an opportunity to learn and innovate more.
Okay.
Access to knowledge.
Yeah.
Outsiders are access to knowledge. Her tribe, however, might be a little more protective. I think they're fairly savage, but
Yeah. Yeah, I think they would be a very insular culture, and I think maybe it would make sense that, like, perhaps they would certainly learn and take good ideas from outside cultures if they are there, but they will absolutely claim them as their own, and they won't they won't necessarily admit that it's a good idea. Okay, fantastic.
Right. Yeah, I like that.
All right, perfect. So that's what we're gonna, I think that gives us kind of a good idea of the background of your character and where they come from. And just as a note, I think this is a really, I'm very happy that that Fantasy Flight Games decided to put the background as the very first thing that you determine in this game, because in a more modern playstyle, right, in more modern games, I think backstories are important. I think these give you a great idea from where to start, but this is where we're going to leave it for right now. And so you can see there isn't a hugely fleshed out backstory with tons of pages and whatever, because we don't want that. We want to keep it a little bit fluid. We want to know just enough to give the players enough to role play their characters, and obviously me as the GM enough to say, okay, great, I've got great ideas to work from here. Right. So awesome.
Yeah, and it gives us just enough framework to help us make decisions as we continue to build our characters.
Absolutely.
My character just changed a lot from my initial idea.
Good. I like that.
In personality ways,
Yeah, I think Jose is locked in. He knows what he wants. He wants I want to kill and burn people. So we'll see how that works. But
I got two things I want to do. That's the first one. The other one,
yeah. No, that's cool. All right, so then the next thing we're gonna do is the next step in character creation is your archetype or your species. So Genesys isn't exactly a class and level based game, but it is kinda. And you guys know, because these guys have played Edge of the Empire with me, same kind of thing. What's cool though about Genesys is, because it's a generic system, there's sort of species are more archetypes in this case. And so in the core book itself, it gives you examples of humans, and where you have an average human, a laborer, an intellectual, an aristocrat. But then within the sections for the settings, it will also give you other species. In the core book itself, it gives you elf, dwarf, and orc, I think, for the races, for the species in the fantasy setting. And then the Terrinoth book expands on that a little bit. You get variations of those. It's almost like subclasses, so highborn elf, lowborn elf, whatever. But then you also get, I think, gnomes, cat folk, which is cool, and one other, I think. And I think those, yeah. Well, the orcs are in the core, but they're also fleshed out in Terrinoth as well. Yeah, if you're gonna ever play fantasy in this setting, get the Terrinoth book. It's important.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna bring up a couple of things here for you. Human stats are right here. Oh, actually, no, you guys were playing elves. So I'm gonna bring up the elf stats from the core book here. These are what we're in the core book, and so. For elves, and I don't know if the abilities are different in Terrinoth for the lowborn elf. I'll take a look. But for anybody at home, this is kind of an idea of what stats look like. So you don't roll stats like you would in D&D. You pick stats, and then this is a point-buy game. So, let's see, lowborn elf. Okay, so elves are elves, right? So 2, 3, 2, 2, 1, 2. Okay, great. Yep. So that's all the same. The only difference is with a lowborn elf, it says lowborn elves begin with 1 rank in survival. You still cannot train it above 2 at character creation. And you have nimble. Okay, great. So the only difference here is that special ability up top where it says elves begin with 1 rank in perception. I think that's changed if you're playing the lowborn elf from Terrinoth. You instead of 1 rank in perception, you get 1 rank in survival. But still nimble. Elf characters have a melee and ranged defense of. So that's great. So you can start filling in your sheet at this point if you want with the elf stats. Yeah, and
I don't
so
have the option to.
What's that?
I don't have the option to like put in it.
Oh, it's not letting you do anything?
No, but it just shows the picture and it's all blank.
Are you Marias? Oh, you know why? Because you didn't because I didn't let you have edit access. There you go. Now you should.
Oh, there we go. Cool.
Yep, I'll put me in there too because, just in case. So this is why it's important, people, if you're using Roll20, to make sure your players have full access. Okay. There we go. So those are the elf stats for anybody looking. Cool. And so obviously you guys know because you've played Star Wars, but brawn is going to be more of your strength and constitution based if we were equating it to D&D. Agility is like dexterity, intellect is more like intelligence, cunning is more like wisdom, willpower obviously is just what it sounds, and then presence would be somewhat like charisma in your typical D20 game. So we've got that 9 plus brawn for your wound threshold, 10 plus willpower for your strain threshold, 90 starting experience points. All right, perfect. Got that. Boom. And then we're going to pick your careers. Now, did you guys want to go with careers from... Were you thinking from the Terrinoth book, or were you going to go... Okay. So, Chris, what were you thinking for your career?
Primalist.
Okay, fantastic. Primalist. All right, so that's page 71 in the Terrinoth book if you have that. So, fierce gods and the forces of nature are the domain of the Primalist. These spellcasters are chosen by their people to be the vessel of either a god or a powerful natural force and channel the power of the storm through their soul. Cool, I like this already.
Right?
Some come from far off lands, others are beholden to living gods. And then there's some specific Terrinoth stuff. Blah, blah, blah. Calling upon the great forces of the natural world, primalists can manipulate weather, fortify their allies, or summon benign spirits to protect them. All right. So they'll use, obviously, Primal as their spellcasting ability. All right. So if you haven't already, you'll want to make sure you check these off as career skills. Alchemy, Brawl, Discipline, Knowledge Lore, which I guess will count as your knowledge skill. Medicine. This is perfect. You've picked the perfect,
right?
Perfect class for
That's
that.
a perfect fit.
Melee Heavy, which is very interesting.
Right.
Instead of Melee Light. I will allow you to switch it for Melee Light if you want to. And the reason I say that is that elves in the way I picture them in my setting, they would typically be more like spear and bow fighters. However, if you have a concept that makes sense, that no, they would carry a big, friggin' like bone or serrated thing, that could make sense. But just for the sake of this campaign, if you wish to swap out Melee Heavy for Melee Light as a career skill, that'll be fine.
Yeah, that would actually make more sense to me.
Okay.
So, cool. Okay.
And then you get Primal and Survival. And so the nice thing with Survival is you're automatically getting 1 rank in Survival because you're a lowborn elf. And so you're already getting that free rank. You don't necessarily have to spend that. I would say that Survival for you is probably going to be somewhat important because if you're going to be out looking for herbs or different plants or whatever to kind of help with your alchemy, those will be
You're gonna
important.
have to be able to deal, right?
Yep.
And I see her pulling things out of the sea too, so
yeah,
survival's kind of a big one.
Yeah, for sure. And again, for anybody watching at home, we'll kind of go into more detail on this, but the way that this game works is it's a point-buy system. We've gone over attributes. You have attributes, and there are skills linked to those attributes. And then those kind of, you can buy ranks within your skill, and that determines which dice you use, because this is a dice pool game. So your ability score generally sets the positive part of your dice pool, and then typically the ranks within your skills determine how many upgraded dice you get on your positive side. The other thing to note is that when playing a spellcaster, you have to have both your spellcasting ability, which for the primalist is primal, and you have to have a knowledge skill as well. And they're different because your spellcasting ability is more specifically about spellcasting, where your knowledge is a little more general, but they go together. And so you can't take more ranks in your spellcasting skill than you have in your knowledge skill, and that'll come up later. So when Chris is spending her 90 experience points, it's going to be important for her to make sure that she's got enough points in the right ability, which for primal I believe is cunning. Let me see. Cunning, yeah. So you'll want to make sure that you have a good cunning score, as well as some ranks in both knowledge and primal. Cool. All right.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Nimble, is that a combat skill or is that a talent?
Nimble is more like an ability. For the purposes of the Roll20 sheet, you could put it under, I think it's talents and abilities.
It says a melee and range defense of 1, so...
Yep. So
I just filled that in and didn't put anything else in?
It's up to you. For me, I like to write it down under the...
Makes sense.
Because what happens to me is I forget. I'm like, wait, why do I have these? Because if you start adding things like a shield, which you probably won't as a primalist, but Jose might, that will also give you defense. And then depending on the weapon you're carrying, you might have more defense. So you could end up as a warrior. Let's say you're carrying a spear and a shield and you're an elf. You could potentially have 3 melee defense right off the bat. Yeah, because you get 1 with your spear, 1 with your shield, as long as it's equipped, and then nimble. So it's like, wow.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. And so Chris, you have Terrinoth's book, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, you can look on 71. Starting gear. It says a staff or a great axe. Obviously, with great axe, you can swap that out for a melee light weapon if you'd prefer.
Okay.
You can also take leather armor if you want, and then obviously you get your apothecary kit, which I assume is what you're going to take.
Yes.
And then the other things on there. So cool. So we're not going to go into the minutia there. Jose, what do you think for your career?
Well, I mean, I wanted to use magic and stuff, but I imagine if I pick a skill, I can still put points into intelligence and stuff, right?
Yeah, you certainly can. So,
Okay, because I was thinking, I guess, scout.
okay. So scout, yeah, okay, perfect. So scout doesn't have as a career skill those abilities, right? So what you're going to want to, and what this means is that it's going to cost you more XP. But if you're okay with that, you're like, you know, I'm mostly going to be like a fighter and a tracker, but I'm going to have a little bit of magical ability too. I think that's okay. And so just as a reminder, and obviously for anybody watching, the way that point buy works for skills is that if you have a career skill, it costs you 5 points for whatever rank you're buying it up to. So to buy it up to the first rank, because all skills start at 0, buy it up to the first rank would cost you 5 points. And then to buy it up to the second would cost you 10 points. So to go from, because it's, you know, 2 ranks plus, you know, times 5 or whatever, 5 times 2 is 10. So if you were to go from character creation and go up to 2, which is the maximum amount of ranks you're allowed to have at character creation, that would cost you a total of 15 points. Now, for non-career skills, like in this case, if you want Arcana or, Arcane or Primal, those just cost you an additional 5 points each. So what that means is at first level, if you wanted 1 rank in Primal, it would cost you the normal 5 plus an additional 5 points. It would cost you 10 XP. And then it would cost you then 10 XP for that second rank if you were going up to a second rank, plus 5, 15. So for a total of 25 XP. So if that makes sense.
Gotcha. The skills that I sing here, like knowledge, adventuring, knowledge, geography, do I get all of those for free, or I gotta spend points?
So those are career skills. So that just simply means that if you choose to put ranks in those, they would cost the same as a career skill as opposed to a non-career. So that you don't get automatic ranks in them, you just get the less expensive cost.
Gotcha.
Oh, I put magic skills. Put up here. And I'll pop that up on your screen. I don't know what for on my screen. That might be hard to see, but the typical magical skills are Arcana, Divine, and Primal. And then in Terrinoth, they add a couple of more. I think Runes, which we're not using.
I got a quick dumb question.
Oh, that's okay. What's up?
Since it says that range is one of my career skills, does that mean any range skill is a career skill?
So in a fantasy setting, they don't differentiate between range light and range heavy. They just have range. So yeah, so that means you can use any ranged weapon, which I like. In other settings, they're a little more nuanced because, for example, in Star Wars, you have ranged light and ranged heavy because a blaster pistol is very different than a blaster rifle. So, you know, but yeah. And so basically the way character creation would work is that they would then go through and they would start spending points. The 90 points that they get as elves, they would spend to either buy up their attributes, which is the recommended thing that you do at character creation, because that you can't upgrade your attributes throughout the game unless you buy very expensive talents. And so it's not like D&D where every 4 levels you have the option to bump your stats up. In this game, whatever your stats are at the beginning of the game typically are the same stats unless you buy expensive talents, which you can do one time per ability. So, yeah. So if you want to be a good
talent points or not?
Yes, right. So yeah, you can still spend points on talents, but remember that the dedication talent is the only way to increase your attributes, mechanically anyway, once the game has started. But during character creation, you can up them to a maximum of 5 by spending XP, and I believe it is 10 experience points per whatever rank. So if you're going from rank 1 to rank 2, because you're going to 2, it would be 20 experience points. If you're then going from rank 2 to rank 3, it would be an additional 30 experience points, right? So as an elf, if you have a 2 in cunning, and you want to bump that up to a 3, that's going to cost you 30 experience points.
Okay.
And so if cunning is the primary ability for primal for primal magic, then a 3 is a good idea, right? Because then at least your base dice pool is always going to be at least 3 dice. Good.
Nice.
You could bump it up to 4, but that would cost you 70 XP, and then you'd only have 20 left.
That wouldn't be enough left to. Okay, so I'm gonna bump it to 3.
Yep, I think that makes sense. So that will knock you down 30 points, so you'll be left with 60 experience points.
And then, would you like me to share what I chose for my ranks from the career skills?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can pull up your sheet here, but yeah, that would be great if you want to.
So I got to choose 4 of those career skills that Sam listed off earlier. So I took a rank in Alchemy, Medicine, Survival, and
Discipline.
Primal.
Oh, I see you have Discipline checked off. Oh, that's just you're right. You have Discipline checked off, but you didn't take a rank in it. That makes sense.
Yeah. I took ranks in Alchemy, Medicine, Survival, Primal.
Remember that Survival you get a free rank. Yeah, you get a free rank in Survival because you're an elf. That's why. Yeah.
That's why. And so the 4th one is Melee Light.
Yep. Okay. So you're going to be, so if you get into a fight and you're not using magic,
right,
you won't be a ranged combatant, essentially. Okay, cool.
Right.
All right, that's good. And so let's see. So we've got, that would be 5, 10, 15, 20 points, it looks like, because you're buying them each up to rank 1.
Well, those are the 4 that I get.
Well, do you get it? I don't think you don't get a rank in each of those.
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh.
Choose 4 career skills and.
Oh, yes. You're right. My apologies. Yes, you do gain a rank in each of those. And Jose, I think I said the wrong thing before. Each of those skills that you were talking about, yes, you do get a first rank in those.
Yeah, you usually get a few.
Yeah, so you'll see that is basically, and because your ability as an elf gave you survival, that's essentially 25 points worth of XP right there that you don't have to spend. So really that's pretty sweet. Yeah, for sure.
So now to figure out so I bumped up my cunning.
Yep.
And then
that's good.
Need to figure out what else I need to purchase ranks in.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So I added to the custom skills knowledge adventuring and knowledge geography. What skills do they fall on?
So knowledge is usually intellect based.
Good.
I can take a look in here and see if it says differently, but knowledge skills are typically intellect based. Yeah. I don't know. Adventuring, intellect. Yep. Geography, intellect. Yep. Cool.
Good. I figured geography would make sense since I would know how to traverse the jungle.
Yeah, for sure.
So how does ranged light work, anyways?
So you wouldn't use ranged light, you'll just use ranged. So ranged is just a simple ability, that you use for any ranged weapon. It may have ranged light on the sheet because this is a generic sheet, not a Terrinoth specific sheet. But there should be ranged light, and ranged heavy. You just put it in range.
So for magic users, magic is already covering ranged. Is that like you would
so the way magic works is basically magic has I think it's like 7 different ways to use it, right? And so like you can make attacks, you can augment your abilities, you can curse people, you can conjure things, you can I think heal, you can do other things. I'll have to look it up again, but yes, typically most spells are either at engaged or short range, and it tells you in the thing. So like if you're attacking, let me pull it up here. I think in the core book they're on page 210. Is that where they are? Let's see. Yeah. So we can talk about magic right now because I think that's a good place to start. So typically when it comes to spell casting, you obviously have to have at least 1 rank in your spellcasting skill, which obviously for you is primal, which you do, to be able to cast.
Right.
Casting spells will cost you, no matter what, 2 strain.
Right.
And then in terms of what you're trying to do with that spell will determine a lot of things. So for example, if you wanted to attack, the rules for attack are on 215. I've also got them in here. Skills. Magic attack. Yeah. All right, so that works. So like for example, you have magic attack additional effects. That's one thing. You can see this adds to it. So what you would do on a magical attack is it would start out as an easy check at short ranged, but not engaged. So it has to be at range, but it can be basic casting is at short range. And then if you want to increase the range, you'll see that's under the magic attack additional effects. So if you were to add 1 more difficulty dice for a base of 2, you could increase it out to medium range, right?
Right. Okay.
Yep. And then obviously if you needed to increase it farther, you would do so essentially by adding these additional effects, you add difficulty to it each time, right? So it makes it harder to do. But yes, if you were to attack somebody with a spell, if you did nothing else to it, it would have to be at short range.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So what I was like, if you're throwing a, poison potion, for example, then that would still be the attack skill. It'd be like throwing a fireball, but it would
be you'd probably use ranged. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
I
was trying to figure out if I needed to add ranged.
One thing you might want to do, Chris, is really look at the augment effect for skills, because that will likely be where you'll want to combine it with potion.
Okay.
Sorry, Jose, what were you saying?
So let's say my intellect is 2 right now. If I wanted to bump that up to 3, how much XP would that take?
30.
Okay.
Yep.
That's not bad then. I thought it was gonna be like double that or something.
No, you can bump it up. To that. Are you gonna go with arcane casting?
Yeah.
You think? Okay. Sweet.
I'm just trying to figure out how to spread the points so that way I can actually cast a spell.
Yeah, so what you'll want to do is you'll want to make sure to put at least 1 rank in knowledge, lore. You'll want to put at least 1 rank in arcane or arcana. That way you can cast the spell. But keep in mind that if you want to be able to increase your rank in your spell casting, so in arcana, you'll have to put more ranks in knowledge. So if you have 2 ranks in knowledge, you can have 2 ranks in arcane. If you have 3 ranks in knowledge, you can have 3 ranks in arcane. You see what I mean?
Would I have enough XP to do that?
So right now, those are both non-career skills for you, right? So if you were to put your first rank in arcane, it would cost you 10 XP. And then your second rank would be an additional 15 XP. So if you did 2 ranks, that would cost you 25 XP. But you'd also have to do that in knowledge. So that would be a total of 50 experience points. So if you did that, plus your 30 for your attribute, you would have 10 experience points left.
Gotcha. And how much would it cost me for my range to 2?
So ranged is, I believe, a career skill for you. So you already got 1 free rank in it. Is that right? Yep. So it just costs you 10 XP to get to the second rank.
That's in a career one?
Yep.
Okay. Because I need to do the same.
And that's nice because you didn't already have to spend first 5 experience to get there, so it's a little bit cheaper.
Okay.
But that's the important thing too to remember, is that with career skills, you can't at character creation, you can't go beyond rank 2 in any skill. So that's important to remember. You can obviously later as you gain XP.
So, but then, okay, and I'm sorry, I know you were this, and I always forget this. But so something you already have a rank in, add that second rank, you're spending another 10.
Yep. So like if you have a career skill that gave you 1 free rank, and now you're bumping it up to a second rank, it'll cost you 10 XP.
All right, so that leaves me almost out. I have 30 XP left. All right, so I took 2 ranks in knowledge, and I added 1 more rank in primal. I also took a rank in ranged.
Nice. So if you do want to throw them potions, you can hopefully do it. Yep.
I want to throw those potions. Oh, and I think I want to add. So let's see. Alchemy is intellect. I could bump up my intellect.
You could. You'll really want to think about where you want to focus the majority of your time and actions. Is it going to be in creating those potions, and sort of augmenting them with your magical knowledge, or do you really want to be focused as a magic user, but also be able to go back on things like alchemy? So for example, what you might be able to do is if you're out in the jungle and you're fighting, and you're using your spells primarily to help you survive and accomplish things, your alchemy could be used along with survival. Maybe you find the proper herbs that you need to create healing salves, and it's non-magical. It would be somewhat like a stim pack in Star Wars, right? It would give you the same ability there, but instead of having to buy it, it would be, there's a whole thing in the book. It talks about rarity, and that's what you set the difficulty and all that. So, so it sort of depends on how you view the character long term and what you want her to be doing most of the time. What do you want her to be best at?
Right. Well, and maybe too, in thinking about, I mean, when you're in it, you're not stopping to create something.
Right. I mean, in theory,
Right.
you will be creating things during downtime or during times in which you aren't under immediate threat.
Right.
Most likely. Yeah.
Right. All right. So I also added one more in what did I do? What did I just do? Survival. So I've got 2 ranks in survival, 2 ranks in primal, and 2 ranks in knowledge.
I think I finished mine if you want to take a look at them a few.
Okay, great.
Leaves me 20 XP.
Hey. And Chris, you may want to take that alchemy, or what was it, apothecary? Whoa, my blank. That was crazy. That apothecary talent.
Oh, right.
Which I believe it's a tier 1 talent, so it's a 5 XP.
Is that in Terrinoth or
It
is
is. Yep, it's in Terrinoth.
Where are the talents?
Jose, was survival was a career skill for you, wasn't it?
It's for being a lowborn elf.
No, oh yeah, for being a lowborn elf. I'll click the thing off for you just so that I was like, that should have a little check mark in it.
Nice. Yeah, I definitely want to take that.
Okay, okay.
It is part of my career though, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, yep. Okay, oh geez, yeah, you bumped up Arcana, huh? All right, and then knowledge. Yep, there you go. Boom, all right. So it looks like you spent the majority of, so you spent all of your XP, Jose, on your characteristics and on skills for the time being, foregoing talents. Okay, cool, that works. All right. And Chris, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
yeah,
that's okay.
I am going to take that apothecary talent.
Okay.
And then how do we know? Oh, yes, it is ranked. All right, so that means I automatically have a rank when I add it, right?
Yes. So, yeah, it says when a patient under your care heals wounds from natural rest, they heal additional wounds equal to twice your character's rank in apothecary. Right. So if you take it as a tier 1 talent, and then you take it again at tier 2, then you would have 2 ranks. If you took it again at tier 3, in theory, you would have 3 ranks. So
nice. Okay. And that, I'm sorry, you said the cost for that is 5.
Yeah, for a rank 1, yep.
Awesome.
Or tier 1, yeah.
All right, so I better type that.
Oh, did Jose disappear? He did for a minute, I guess. Okay.
Wounds equal to twice the character ranks in apothecary.
Right. And it is recommended, at least I recommend, when creating characters for the first time, do spend all your experience points. Sometimes people are like, I don't know what to do, but rank up skill, grab another talent, whatever. If you can, spend all your experience points because you're going to need them.
I'm going to take precision too.
Precision, okay. Is that one of the, is that in the core book or is that in Terrinoth?
It's in Terrinoth. It's page 84.
Yep, I see it here. When making a brawl or range check, your character may use cunning instead of brawn or agility. Ooh.
Cool, right?
Interesting, yeah.
Now I see it's not ranked,
Right.
so
So you can only take it once.
I can only take it once. Okay.
Yeah. Because it makes sense, right? Like, it's not
Yeah.
really adding
Sort of
anything. It just
passive,
is
right?
it's like a swap skill, kind of. Nice.
So I guess I click passive. There we go.
Yep. Okay. So, just for anybody following along at home, in terms of the 7 steps to character creation, we've done step 3, which is choose a career. We are now doing step 4, which is invest experience points. Step 5 is derived attributes. And derived, that's kind of natural. It's wound threshold, strain threshold, defense, and soak. And so those are based basically on your character sheet. So the elf stats, let me pull them up again here. So for a wound threshold, they get 9 plus their brawn. So in Chris's case, she did not bump her brawn, so she would have 9 plus 2 is 11. 10 plus willpower for strain threshold. And I don't believe either of you bumped up your willpower, right?
Right.
Okay. So in that case, it would be 11 for a strain threshold. Soak is based on your brawn rating. So soak is, I'll pull it up in the book here so you can reference it as well, for anybody following along at home. Soak is on page 46 of the Genesis core rulebook. And so your character's default soak value is equal to their brawn rating. After that, you can bump that up with armor. So in that case, if they have a brawn of 2, their initial soak value would be 2. Soak it basically does exactly what it sounds like. It soaks damage. And then defense, the cool thing is they still have nimble, so they would have a defense of 1 in melee and ranged. So these are your derived attributes in the Genesis or narrative dice system. And defense is important because the way defense works, unlike in D20 where you have armor class, you don't have armor class in this. Your to hit is determined by the character's skill, and then there's a difficulty based on ranged, and setback dice are added for defense. So if you're making a ranged attack, elves are nimble, so they automatically are going to add 1 setback dice to their attacker's pool because they can dodge a little bit better, right? And setback dice can add failures or threats to results. So that's good for the defender, not so good for the attacker.
All right.
So you can see that steps 3 probably, and 4 is probably where investing experience points is probably the longest part of the character creation. But even still, I mean, we are what? How long are we going here? Not super long. Hour and a half. Yeah. Hour and 20 minutes, give or take. So, and this is from scratch. Once you've done this a bunch of times, it becomes second nature, and they could probably have done these faster if they wanted to, but we are doing this on screen specifically for the benefit of an audience as well, to help in case you're like, boy, this game looks fun, but holy crap, it's complicated. It really isn't. It just seems like
it really
it.
Isn't. So I just took 2 more talents.
Okay, great.
And I just thought it might be interesting for anybody watching, if I can get back to it. I took, from the core book, I took Forager.
Okay, perfect.
Which is a passive talent, but it allows me to remove up to 2 setback dice from any skill checks I make to find food, water, or shelter.
Awesome.
And checks to forage or search in an area makes that I do take half the time they would normally. So if I'm out, obviously we've talked a lot about her foraging for things,
Yep.
for ingredients. So that makes sense. And then I also took grit.
Yeah.
And as
Good.
we were talking about earlier, I'm going to have to take strain when I cast spells.
Yes.
And each rank of grit increases your character's strain threshold by one.
one.
So I just took one rank for now, but
yes, grit will be an essential talent to take if you are playing a magic user in this in Genesys, because that again is one of the only ways to bump up that derived attribute is the grit talent. But the nice thing is that it's ranked, so you can take it multiple times. It just becomes more expensive each time, but it's well worth it. Cool. And so that, yeah, excellent. All right. So I think, let me just take a look and see if we do, yeah, we don't choose gear until the end, which I love. All right. So we're going to do motivations now. And motivations start on page 46 in the core book. And essentially, they're broken down into 4 things. You have a desire, you have a fear, you have a strength, and you have a flaw. And these are very, anybody who's played D&D, you can kind of see, right? There's a little bit of a parallel between your personality traits, bonds, flaws, and ideals in 5th edition, anyway. Now these are purely narrative, but if you want, they have role tables. And I don't have examples of those, unfortunately, in Roll20 right now. But on page 47, desires, if you don't know what you want to pick, you can roll a D100 and they give you different examples. So like 1 to 10 is ambition, 11 through 20 is belonging, 21 through 30 is expertise, and they give you a little like sentence to kind of flesh those out.
Do you want us to roll for it, or you?
It's up to you. If you feel, I like rolling for those because I like the randomness of it. But if you don't want to, you certainly don't have to.
I think about it, so I'll make it fun.
All right.
Okay. Oh man, that doesn't fit though. I just rolled fame.
You don't have to. So if you don't
Mine
like
works out
fame,
beautifully. I rolled a 5, and so ambition.
Ambition, nice. You don't have if fame doesn't work, then you can pick something else. But think about it for a minute. Your character seeks the limelight, wants to be famous.
Right.
You know.
Maybe, I mean, there isn't a. Maybe she does.
If you're
Maybe
talking
she wants to
something
be
you're
famous for her innovation. That's really not such a bad thing. I can work with that. I'm gonna.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay, that goes here.
Where are we putting some motivations
at? So those on the character sheet in Roll20. Let me take a look.
It's on the character tab, character info tab.
Yep. So right under your soak, you'll see those different tabs: character info, skills, weapons and talents, inventory, whatever. The very first one on the left, character info. You've got motivation down below, and then desire, fear, strength, flaw, and then the description. So those, those start on page 47, with the roll table for desires. So Jose, did you want to roll, or you said you did roll, right? Ambition.
Yeah, I got ambition for the desire.
Yeah, so your character craves power and authority over others. The character may pursue privilege, social status, or rank to achieve this goal. Cool. So obviously, anybody who's ever played a role-playing game before will understand that these are specifically there to help the players determine how to role-play their character. So that will be interesting to see as a tool for your role play, especially with Chris and her fame. Those could actually work really well together, but they could also be very conflicting as well, so something to think about.
Oh, it's funny. My fears is commitment.
Nice. Like, yeah, I don't like to get tied down. Sorry. It's not me. No. Yeah, so cool. So yeah, then again, for fears, they have change, commitment, death, expression, failure, humiliation, isolation, nemesis. Ooh, that's cool. Obscurity and poverty. So yours was commitment. The idea of making promises or being relied on scares your character, who hates the idea that someone else is relying on them. So that almost, to me, might be something along the lines of like a fear of failure, right? Like you don't want to fear, you don't want to let somebody, it's not exactly a fear of failure because that's a whole different thing, but like that could very well be I'm playing a scout, so I'm a ranger, so I'm going to more often than not maybe try to go out on my own because I don't want to make any commitments to my companions that I might not be able to keep, either because I will die or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So,
You're gonna love my strengths. It's analytical.
oh, nice. All right. Very cool.
I like the way it sounds.
Yeah, I like the way this character's coming out. So analytical, yeah, that'll be interesting, especially in like a combat perspective, right? Where you kind of survey the battlefield, all that. Chris, what are you doing for a fear? And again, you don't have to roll if you don't want to, but
My fear is failure.
cool. All right. And what do you think that you're most afraid to fail at?
Well, I think as a person who does medicine, she's probably what she's most afraid of failing is another person's life.
Yep. Okay. So failing when somebody's in danger and it's on the line. Okay. That'll be really interesting. I could see there being big potential there for some moments, when like you got to patch somebody up and there could be like, they're going to get some setback here because this is nasty. Yeah. Okay.
Something. And then for her strength, I rolled patient.
Oh, good. Okay. That's working out really well, I think, actually.
Yeah.
That just based on the concept that I have for your character in my head. Right. That's cool.
It's really a good.
Yeah, like willing to wait, know the power of being calm by waiting for the right opportunity. Your character avoids all manner of unpleasant and dangerous situations. And that could also be very complementary, again, with Jose's character in surveying the battlefield and being very analytical about what you're seeing. Cool.
I like that.
You're gonna love my flaw.
What is it?
Ignorance.
Awesome.
Uh-oh.
And so
but it makes perfect sense.
Oh no, I just rolled the same one.
So interesting. What are you guys thinking for ignorance? I do have a suggestion that might work for you as well if you.
I like the part that it says understanding of a city's norm, and it makes sense because you don't really know much about the city.
Yeah. I think maybe in your case, Jose, you probably wouldn't fully understand the structure and the sort of political structure of the city and how that will work. And so if you ever end up having to go there, that could be problematic for you because you're used to being out roaming in the wilderness, either with your tribe or by yourself. And, you've seen the city, but just from the outside. So if you ever have to interact with it in that political structure, that could be.
Yeah, I figure he can get swindled easily or get into trouble because he doesn't know the rules and everything.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. And so for any of you guys who are thinking about playing this game, who are used to playing 5th edition D&D, I'm sure that you did not neglect the bonds, flaws, ideals, and character, or what is it, personality traits, because you shouldn't, because they're important. So
it helps so much in your role playing.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Zombie. Yeah, we're, yep, cool. Thanks. Glad you could make it to the stream. We are doing Genesys character creation. We've gone through, we're mostly done at this point. We're going to be picking gear here in a minute. But you'll be able to watch the VOD back, and I'll put it up on YouTube as well, so you'll be able to see the whole thing, and I'll edit it a little bit. But yeah, we've got a cool 2 characters so far. Jose is kind of a scout warrior, but also has some magical ability. So, you know, maybe getting to blast things along with shooting things with your arrows. And Chris is kind of a healer. Not a cleric, though, in the sense that not using the divine magic skill, right? But more primal, which is cool because it's kind of like a druid healer type concept. So really cool. Awesome. So I think that we've got our 4 pieces there for motivation, right? We've got our desire, our fear, our strength, and our flaws. And the last thing we need to do is just pick gear and then appearance and personality. I'm not necessarily going to worry about appearance and personality for the sake of this stream, because you guys can come up with that, you know, on your own. You'll describe your character however you see them in your head. And we've got those cool ass tokens, which kind of help with. So, but gear is important. So I believe I have some handouts actually for gear. Let me see. Why don't we start with armor, because armor is important. And again, these are from the core book. There is more nuanced gear in the Terrinoth book, if you have that, but you can get along just fine if you don't have that with the core book. And the way that armor works, as you guys know, is that you don't normally get defense. Sometimes you do. So it's not like it adds armor class like it would in D&D, but it adds more to your soak. So, and for the sake of this one shot, we're not going to worry necessarily about price, but I will say that plate armor and magic plate aren't, that doesn't make sense in this setting. And it really wouldn't make sense for your characters anyway. So I think you would most likely be looking at either leather armor, potentially chainmail, although it has an encumbrance of 3 for chainmail, which means you would have to have 3 brawn to be able to wield it without any penalty. Where robes and leather armor are... I'd recommend leather armor because it'll bump up your soak a little bit. And you guys... I don't feel like you guys will be frontline combatants necessarily. Right. So I think that it doesn't necessarily require a huge, and all that.
So, and leather came with my primalist equipment. So
yeah,
and that makes sense anyway for what she does. She need to have freedom of movement. So, okay. What else? Are you finding the gear from Realms of Terrinoth is going to be the most useful, or?
Yeah. Let me just see if I put it in here. Yeah, the gear in the Terrinoth book is much more diverse. It breaks it down a little bit more, right? So, like, you know, it'll give you more armor, more weapon types, more shield types. I think for you, Chris, you're probably gonna get more value out of the equipment, or the gear section, which I think is on page 101.
Right.
In Terrinoth, but
okay.
yeah. You'll also want to take a look at magic implements, which is on page 98 and 99. Because magical implements are, those kind of help with your your spells. So for example, if you had like a magical staff, for example, that you carried around, if you were doing any damage dealing spells, that would help add your damage. And it also can help you decrease, I believe it can help you decrease the difficulty of some of your spells by 1. Helpful. Character casts a spell while using a staff. The first range effect added to the spell does not increase the spell's difficulty. In addition, attack spells cast by your character increase their base damage by 4. So magical implements, Chris, for you will be important to look at. You don't necessarily have to take them, but yeah. So, and I think it would make sense, kind of looking at it, you know, like a musical instrument may or may not make sense. I don't know that a magic tome necessarily would either, because that to me that's more of a wizard's like spell book, and you're not really a wizard. But a staff would certainly make sense.
Yeah,
or a scepter, but I think a staff would make sense, or a wand.
Right.
Yeah.
And staff was okay, so I didn't take staff as my weapon, but it was one of those pieces of equipment. So I feel like that kind of fits the primalist anyway, like they're suggesting. Right?
Yeah.
So
yep, for sure.
Let's see.
And then you'll want to take a look, Chris, on page 99, implement materials, to see if, because the material can do stuff to it, right?
Right.
Yeah. No, Zombie, you're not distracting at all, man. Thanks for the input. That's why I want to do this on Twitch and not on YouTube, because I like the interaction with people, so I appreciate that. Also, you'll notice we've got our Roll20 map up kind of here in the middle, and then right underneath it, we've got the dice. Those will come up here shortly, because we're almost done. As soon as we got some gear for these guys put into their sheets, we'll be able to roll with a little scenario here. You guys cooked up cool characters. So obviously, you know my GM style. That's not going to change. But I will always give the caveat that, you know, play your characters like they were real, and like you, unless for some reason you want them to die, then go for it. But if you don't want them to die, try to make decisions that would help them stay alive, which I think goes without saying, but still. Jose, what are you thinking for gear?
Okay, looking at the starting stuff, I'm gonna go with the bow.
Yep.
2 healing elixirs, leather armor.
Okay. Are you so you're really going to be more of the ranged combatant, right? Not so much getting in close. Okay, cool.
Well, if they get close, I'm gonna burn them pretty much.
Yeah, now keep in mind that most attack spells can't be used at engaged range. So if they get right up in your grill, you might have to punch them or something, you know, but that's cool. Hopefully that's not going to happen, because if that happens,
I can always run.
Yeah. Yeah, that will be brutal. Cool. So yeah, just make sure that you're adding those in like on your character sheet, so that when we make the rolls, you'll be able to do that effectively. I think the normal bow, I think, is what, 7 damage.
Yeah, I looked at that sheet you had and put it in there.
Okay, cool. Oh, perfect. Yeah.
So, question about use of the character sheet,
Uh-huh.
would you put the magic staff as a weapon? Or would you put it in a magic power?
I would put it as a weapon. So just like a regular old staff is your brawn +2. Now keep in mind, staff is listed as melee heavy, so you're probably not going to want to use that very much if you can help it.
Okay. Well, that's probably why it gave me.
Yeah. So if you want to switch, that skill, you can. But you know. So yes, you could put it in as a weapon. What's that?
I said, do I get a staff also?
Was that part of your kit?
Nope.
I mean, you could buy a staff if you want, but would you carry a staff as more of like a ranger? I don't know if that would make sense. I feel like you would have like a bow and some kind of like
I think that's
sword or
something
dagger.
we'll get later on.
Yeah.
When he learns about stuff.
And keep in mind too, like if you want to use magic, especially if you're sort of honing in on fire magic, wands would make a lot of sense for you because wands are specific to a certain type of thing. So, for example, if you want to cast a fire spell, you may want to add the burn quality, and you may want to add the blast quality, and that's what will give you your fireball, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, but those would increase the difficulty, and so by having a fire staff, a fire wand, that would help decrease that a little bit. But we'll get in there later. Chris, keep in mind too, with a staff, if you have the staff equipped, it has defensive 1, which means that would add 1 to your melee defense.
Oh, nice. Okay. But only when equipped, so how do you track that?
Well, so ultimately you'll have to let me know, and I'll have to keep track of that, yeah.
So, and I see that it has a ranged thing.
What's that? Staff? Ranged is just engaged, right?
Yeah, it's got this, when you cast a spell using it.
Oh, the spell.
Yeah. Range effect added does not increase the difficulty, so that's really cool.
Yeah, that is. So that means if you're casting a spell that normally would be at short range and you wanted to increase it out to medium, it won't increase the difficulty for that first range. Yeah.
Nice.
So that's great. Perfect. Good deal. So yeah, so I think that this was good. I think that this gives us a really kind of cool group of characters and a good understanding, I think, of what we are kind of going to be rolling with here. And I've certainly got enough to start playing here. I think what I might do, if you guys are okay, I'm going to just take like a quick bathroom break, get another drink, and then we can, roll back in about 5 minutes or so. For anybody who is watching, if you have headphones on, there is music on the Be Right Back screen, and I don't know how loud it will be on headphones, so be prepared. Here we go. I am back. Had to grab some Citizen Cider. This stuff I think is only here in Vermont. Really good. More of a beer man usually, but pretty good.
Never heard of it before, but the flavor sounds good.
Yeah, it's totally local. It's like it's funny because where they make this is literally like maybe a block and a half from where I work. And I have not been there the entire time that I have worked where I'm at. But it's just funny because I never thought I would like hard cider. Turns out I kind of do, at least this one, so. Yep. Yeah, Zombie, if you're still in the chat, it's funny, this sort of overlay here is part of Streamlabs OBS, and it had all of the normal Twitch stuff. I kind of took some of it down because it's sort of weird. I don't know, with RPG streams, sometimes I feel, I don't know how much it adds to it, but I'm also still kind of learning all of the bells and whistles for Twitch, so I'm definitely going to be incorporating more of the stuff in there, as I go along, but we'll see. But yeah, so thanks for the offer for creating some of those. I'll probably take you up on that. And Jose, are you Chicomancer?
Yes, sir.
Cool. Oh man, I can't wait to bring the pain. It's gonna be crazy. It's I don't know. It's so interesting because like I was saying, my whole concept, right, is like very much influenced by like Diablo, right? And I don't, have you ever read any of Terry Brooks' like Shannara novels?
I haven't, but
No.
I'm definitely gonna look into that now.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. I quite like them, but the concept in those books is largely that the world, it's sort of a post-apocalyptic fantasy setting in the sense that it's high fantasy, but it's set basically like on Earth, but in the future after like a great cataclysm or whatever, and so it's sort of reverted to this magical thing. So it's neat because at some point it almost starts getting really sort of like Numenera, like where they've got these like computer things. It's cool as hell, but that and Diablo and just some of these ideas where like what would the world be like in a fantasy world where you had a sort of a Forgotten Realms type thing, right? Where it was very like there was lots of culture, civilization, high magical knowledge, and then it all goes to shit, right? Like it all just starts having, and so I'm thinking like almost in a way like fantasy Terminator, like, okay, Skynet has gone sentient and has started sending all of its Terminators out, and you guys are the survivors, the ones that are trying to survive. That hasn't happened yet, so this will sort of introduce that, and then hopefully we can play more in this setting at some point.
I'd definitely be down.
Yeah. And when you guys are ready to go, let me know and I will start kicking it off here.
I'm ready, but when you get a chance, can you double check my cheat, make sure everything's done?
Yep, I can. What I would recommend that you guys do, if you're gonna plan on using magic, is to keep an eye on the different effects, right? Especially like magical attack obviously is important, and I have the additional effects in there, but take a look at some of the other ones too to make sure that you can use them. Like I know both Arcane and Primal can use the attack, but for example, Augment which might be one that it doesn't say on there. Interesting. Augment, I think, cannot be used by Arcane. I think it can only be used by Primal. And Chris, that one, like, for example, there is Divine Health, right? So target increases their wound threshold by a value equal to the character's ranks in knowledge for the duration of the spell. So it's not exactly healing, but it kind of is, right? Because it's like you gain more wounds, which is cool. There's haste. Oh, you know what? Actually, augment. Yeah, I think augment is primal and divine. Let's double check. There's primal fury, which, target adds damage equal to the character's ranks in knowledge to unarmed combat checks, and their critical rating for unarmed combat checks becomes 3. So, like, that's pretty, pretty crazy if you think about it. You can add range, swift, targets affected by the spell ignore the effects of difficult terrain. So augment might be one that you really want to take a look at some point, just depending on your ideas here. But
I think augment's a good choice. What page was that on again, though? I'm having trouble.
So you start. It's in the core book. Augment is on page 216.
Wrong book, Chris. Okay, and then I had there was another question. Again, as more of a character sheet question.
Yeah.
But sorry.
That's okay.
Too many things. I'm trying to keep that open. All right. About the apothecary's kit.
Yeah.
It mentioned the right tools for the job.
Mm-hmm.
And so that you add a boost die to alchemy checks. So would you list that in talents?
No, I would list that under equipment. And okay. I mean, it's up to you, right? You can kind of put it where you want on the sheet, but I would list it under your equipment, and then in like the description field, just put that in the description, right?
With the information about the kit
yeah,
itself.
yeah. That'll be one of those. That's one of the unfortunate things about the Roll20 character sheet, the way it's laid out, is that isn't exactly the easiest thing to deal with. But yeah, so that's what I would do. You are probably not going to have a lot of opportunity to use an alchemy kit.
Probably not.
In this adventure?
At least today, right.
Yeah, but we'll see.
But that's okay. All right, so...
oh, it's not playing. Okay, let me do... You guys hear the spooky music in Roll20?
Actually, no. That's odd.
Oh, I can hear it now.
Yep. All right, good. It's starting off with a slow burn, but
oh, it's in here.
I had to make sure my volume wasn't turned down because I had it down during that ring game.
Yeah. If that was that super loud normally? I tried to turn the volume down.
I have the volume way up,
okay.
And I can't hear it at all. So.
Oh, Chris, you're not able to hear it? One of the things, well, it could be an issue with Roll20. You could go into your settings, and one of the things that you'll want to do, let's see. Oh, no, you may not have it. Stay in here.
Yeah, I don't see anything that would affect it aside from the volume slide, which is all the way up.
Oh, weird. All right. Well, I wouldn't worry about it for now. But,
Okay, so
I'll see. Also, just to let you guys know, probably what I'm going to do is on YouTube, when I put this up, it's definitely going to be edited, but I'm probably going to break it up into pieces. And so I'll probably break the actual play part of it into its own piece. That should be cool.
Excellent. So this is weird too, is that I don't understand these two distinctions. So they've got augment in two places.
Well,
Got it on page 212 as well. I guess that's
yeah. Oh, yeah. So those that's just telling what it is, right?
right. Where
And
this
then
is actual...
yeah, and then on 216 are the actual effects.
Now, do we know how many things we can pick, or do we just pick them as things?
So you basically what you're gonna kind of do is you would want to just describe what it is that you want to do.
Okay.
And then we would kind of look to see which one fits. But keep in mind that, like, as a primal caster, for example, you can only do certain things. Like, you can't create a barrier. You can't curse people. You can't use dispel. You know, but you can, like, conjure things, which is cool. You could heal, which is really great because Jose can't do that with Arcane or with Arcana.
Oh, this is
Yeah, I can do barriers.
Yep.
He can't curse either. Huh.
No. Yeah, he can. He can do curses.
Yeah, and it was lost to be a counterspell.
Yep.
There's some great stuff in here. This is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this magic system is phenomenal, at least on paper. And so I'm excited to see kind of
find out.
Yeah, how things are going to go here. Okay.
All right.
Cool. So, are you ready? Are you guys ready to get into this thing?
I think so. Yeah, let's do it.
All right, perfect. So what we're going to do, you guys are currently out in the jungle. Jose, you have and sorry, actually let me pull up what's your character's name again, Jose? Kalusa?
Miragaris.
Oh, Miragaris or Mirayaris? Mirayaris?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. You have been traveling along with some of the warriors of your tribe down along the coastal lands, tracking these warriors from a rival tribe. They have been trying to escape, and you guys have been relentless in your pursuit. You have made it all the way to the village in which... is it Kialusa?
Yeah.
Okay, and the Sawleaf tribe village on the coast. And after a few days there and speaking with them, you have realized that they have not... Yeah, we'll do that in just a moment. Chris, thanks for bringing up story points. They have not found these people. They haven't been actively searching, but it seems that these people have actively avoided this town. So your enemy currently is still out in the jungle. But as you have kind of taken some time, the leader, the battle leader of your tribe has said that you guys are the better trackers. But if they're out on foot, and by themselves, not having come to the village, they will have to rely on hunting, and you should be able to find them. And so what he said was, why don't we wait here, get some provisions, and set out in a few days. And what we'll do, I'll set story points right now. So... I forget. I think the way this works is you guys get 2 because there are 2 players, and I get 2 because there are 2 players. And first player update. Hopefully that works. Let me know if those show on your sheet now, on your character sheets. And anybody at home who's not familiar with the system, one of the things that Genesys does, the narrative dice system in general, but Genesys does really well, is story points. And they can do things mechanically, like allowing you to upgrade your checks to make things a little bit easier for you. They can do things like increase the difficulty of your opponent's checks. Or you can use them to do things like say, hey, I've remembered this particular piece of equipment that I don't have written on my sheet. Or, yes, there is, in fact, a contact or a door here that wasn't here before. So, pretty cool. and they flip back and forth. So as a player uses one, I get to use one, and then as I use one, then the players have an opportunity to use more. So that's good. So we'll have those. I'm going to actually... I don't think Corey's going to show up. I wouldn't imagine at this point. So I'm going to update this a little bit. Sorry, just going to update the overlay just a little bit so we can see a little bit more here. Okay, great. So, Jose, you guys are currently in the village, and Chris, you guys have been noticed these sort of warriors from a village a little ways away have come in to your town. They've been asking for supplies, stuff like that, right? They've been generally cordial. Although one of them certainly is a little bit uncomfortable and maybe a little awkward. But you will have noticed, Chris, that you've been feeling very on edge the last few days. Something in the forest is different, right? Something in the forest feels wrong. You just have this sense of foreboding. And Miriaris, you have two. A little bit strange for you because it's not your battle senses, right? You know when your enemy is nearby. You can just sense it, right? This is something different, something uncomfortable. This is that magical part. Your studies in the arcane arts have trained you to kind of notice something's going on, but you can't quite tell what it is. And probably the third day after just as you're about ready to set out, right? You've provisioned. Your battle leader has stayed here maybe longer than you would have liked because it's comfortable here. They have lots of food. They've been accommodating to you because you're big, scary warriors and your tribes are not at war. And so it's been comfortable. And so dawn is starting to break on that third day. And Kiolusa, you're probably up with the dawn normally, because perhaps that is when some of the flowers, they come out with the sun, and some of those flowers you need to collect then before they close back up as the noonday sun starts to come out. And so you are preparing to come out, and the first thing that you notice is the sun in the sky is just this blood red, right? And this is something that you've seen from time to time because, and the sailors in the village, they always have sayings about, if there's a red sky in the morning, be careful, things may not go your way. And so there's this superstition, right? And so as your sort of village is waking up and they're seeing this, it's alarming. People have a sense of like, oh no, something is not going to go well this day. But the shaman in your village seems particularly agitated. And you can start to feel why. Something about the world just seems wrong. Nature is not feeling like it should. Everything is starting to you feel this tension, you feel this pressure almost in that part of you that is attuned with the world around you. And you see, as you kind of focus in around you, you're looking at your surroundings, and there's a few people sort of standing, and off a little ways beyond the village, just kind of outside of your village proper, you see this lone figure, this lone elf, just standing there surveying the horizon. Bow at the ready. This was the warrior who introduced himself as Miriaris, the one who seemed very out of sorts here, who was, who didn't interact the same way that the rest of the warriors did, but gives off this very dangerous grace. And you notice him standing there looking out onto the horizon. And Mariaris, you, as you're looking kind of at the, at the jungle with the sun kind of to your back rising, this illuminating the forest in this blood red, you know that something is going to happen. You know with absolute certainty that something is going to happen. And you're looking, and it isn't a particularly hot morning, but you start to see this shimmering in the jungle ahead of you a little ways, right? There's this shimmer, it's like if a fire was lit, right? And it's the fumes coming off the fire, and yet there isn't a fire. And it's starting to bug you. And then you become aware of eyes on your back. Somebody's looking at you. What do you do?
Well, I look around, see if I can see anybody.
Yeah, you definitely would. You, of course, would see Chris's character. You would see Kialusa. This and Chris, what would your character look like? Oh, you're muted. I think.
Sorry, forgot to unmute.
That's right.
She's very tanned, compact elf. She's kind of average height. She has tattoos on her body, and they're kind of colored tattoos, so they're just slightly darker than her own skin tone. Mm-hmm. Even on her face. And she has a lot of odd looking bits and things dangling from her clothes and are attached to her leather. But it's pretty minimal, with the heat of the jungle. It's very free looking clothing and this, simple leather armor. Probably most notable would be these odd objects hanging from her belt. And they're sort of semi-secure, natural netting that's just kind of there. And, so they're not flopping around, and she has lots of little odd things, kind of a necklace with some weird looking or like sea urchin spines or something from it all around her neck.
All right. And so it is that character, Miriaris, is that how you say it?
Yeah, Mariaris.
Mariaris, yeah. That's kind of who you see looking back at you. The rest of the village, there's a few other people around, but they seem to be kind of just doing the daily routine that they would for a somewhat of a fishing village, right? They have these canoes and they have nets and they're getting ready to go out onto the water. But not this woman looking at you.
Alright, so he will be wearing like leather armor, but it would have like pretty much like grass and vines on it, like kind of like camouflage. Mm-hmm. And then you will see that he got tattoos from like the top of his chest all the way to his face. Like his whole face is not tattooed, but like his forehead and the side of it. And he would probably walk up to her and he would like take out his hand, kind of like when a warrior grabs another warrior by like the bicep, like, like embrace him, like, like friend and whatnot. And he would like put his face like right next to her, but not looking at her, just like side by side. And he would be like, "My name is Mariaris. What's your name?"
I'm Kialusa.
And I think you would immediately notice that, like, that's sort of awkward, right? Like, that's not how somebody would normally come up to you. especially a male warrior and an unaccompanied female. But you kind of just give them your name, and so she responds. Do you respond with any kind of hesitation, or are you more curious than anything else?
I think I'm more curious than anything else, and I'm probably a little taken aback, but I take it in stride and return the grip. And you have been here many, many days.
Him pretty much like never really going into cities and stuff like that, and not knowing that you're not supposed to lie to people that you don't really know. He would pretty much tell her that what they're looking for, whatever is the tribe that they're looking for, and then he would ask her if she's seen any other tribes pass by in the last few days.
Yours are the only people who have been new. Why do you seek these people?
They're dangerous. They kill many of my people.
It was well that they did not enter our village then.
And then after that, like, if he's still like holding onto your hand, he would bring you in closer for a second, and he would start sniffing, but not at you, just in the air and looking around. And he would be like, something's really weird here, so keep your eyes open and be careful." And then he would like let go of your hand.
Yes, there's something very bad coming, I fear.
And at that,
the red in the sky does not bode well.
yeah, and I think as you say that, the shaman in your village comes out, and he's frantic, right? And he runs over to you, and he says, "Kiolusa, you must get out of here. Something bad is about to happen. We cannot. Oh, it will not go well for us. Please." And he's like, he seems like he's raving at this point. And the thing is, like, with your shaman, he's getting a little older. Some people in the village have started thinking he might be a little crazy because he's been prophesying these like visions of destruction and death. But things for you guys have been pretty good. Like, I mean, the fish are within the lagoon. You have good hunting. You haven't had many enemies come by. So people, your colleagues are starting to so your colleagues, the other villagers are starting to think that perhaps he's a little bit nuts. But he's saying this. It's like, you must go. Get away from the village. It is not safe here.
What of the rest of the villagers? Cannot just leave?
Don't worry. I will protect them. I will lead them to the boats. And then as this happens, he kind of looks past you and he says, "Oh no, it is too late." And not gonna let me die out.
Too late for what?
Hold on. You'll see what it's too late for in just a second. Oh, there we go. Yep. All right. It did put it onto the screen. You can see this guy right here. Ding.
Ooh.
Yeah. And this is actually what this represents is a number of creatures. There's 3 in all. And just take a look here. Blah, blah. Roll20 started messing up on me here, being a jerk. Okay, good. So, these are these terrifying beast-like creatures with these spines all down their back and on their face and this big spiked tail. But you don't notice that at first, because the first thing that you notice is this intense pain and like pressure in your head as you almost feel like something is just being torn, something is being ripped. Nature is warping. Mirajaris, you feel this intense... So the only way you can explain it is it's just wrong. Something about the natural order of the world is changing, and it's making you almost sick to your stomach. Like it's so unnatural, and it feels just unbelievable. And you see the shimmers that you were seeing before now seem to be like almost coalescing into this like crystalline type of it almost looks as if it was like gel of some kind in the air, and it's pulsating and crystallizing, and then it goes from this wispy smoky color to this like reddish orangey with like black tinging it, and then you can see it start to form into this like, it almost looks like a tear, like if you were wearing your leather clothes and you got a tear in it, right? That's what it looks like, but just in the air. And out of it steps these, leaps, these 3 hideous looking monstrous beasts. They are nothing like you've ever seen before. And the jungle has predators that are more dangerous than probably anybody else has ever seen. This is utterly terrifying. And Kealusa, you would sense it as well, and almost at the same time, your gaze would turn as these 3 things. The first one with these claws basically come out of nowhere, right? It's like basically coming out of the air in front of you, out of the ground in front of you, leaps out, looks around, let's let this, and then 2 more follow behind it. And I need you guys both to make a discipline check for me. This is going to basically be a fear check. This is going to be against 3 purple. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a story point to... Oh, sync pool. The GM here. Upgrade it. Yeah. All right. And so I want each of you to go ahead and make that discipline roll for me when you're ready.
And I don't even have skills on that.
I know.
Person.
By the way, for anybody watching at home, I'm using the stat block for the Flesh Ripper from page 214 of the Terrinoth. Oh boy. So it looks like Kealusa manages to keep the fear at bay, but just barely, right? You manage to hold this off, and you're shaken, but you realize that like there's a danger here, right? Unfortunately, Mirajaris, you are not so lucky. You see this thing, and you definitely are taken aback by it. You start to back up a little bit. You're basically looking for like a place that you can hide, because these things are... Now there's 3 of them, and it's just utterly terrifying. And so you kind of like go over here into like the underbrush or whatever. Can you see your tokens, by the way?
Yeah.
You can. Good. Okay.
Are we as close to them then as where you have me?
No. Sorry, a little ways away. But they're pretty close. They opened up like pretty close to you. Yeah. Down, like kind of down this area would be like where the beach is. The village is all kind of like all up in here or whatever, and then this is kind of like leading into the forest. And so now what I think I'm gonna have us do is roll initiative. So you guys are gonna need to roll vigilance because you were not prepared for this. Okay. And they are going to do the same. But before we do that, let me just make sure. Okay, I've cleared the dice pool. Okay. And let's see. Where's your vigilance? go. All right. So the way, for anybody watching at home who's not familiar with the system, this game uses basically 2 skills that you could use depending on circumstances for initiative. Your vigilance is the one where it's sort of your natural senses to be able to catch things that sort of unexpectedly come up, right? It's when you're not prepared for something. Or your cool skill, which can also be used in situations where maybe you're gambling and trying to keep a straight face or whatever. When you're prepared, you know what you need to do, and you need to keep your cool. And so vigilance is what we used in this case. Holy moly. The bad guys get to go first. So I think what's going to happen here, and let me see if they put this into the initiative tracker. Whoops, wrong one. Let's see. Oh, you guys used your skills. Can you do me a favor, actually? No, you know what? Never mind. I'm just going to do this. C. Add. PC. Add. All right. So normally what you would do when you're rolling for the skills, for when you're rolling initiative, you should have right under your, I think it's right under your attributes, it should say initiative, and it says cool and vigilance. You want to roll there as opposed to on your skills, because that will allow you to that'll allow us to show this like turn order. So yeah, but no worries. So all right, let me just take a look. So
wait, no, where?
So you should see, let me pull up
every time. I can never remember where.
That's all right, let me pull up your sheet. So yeah, if you go under, is it weapons, talents, and powers? Yeah, right at the very up at the top there. Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, but that's okay, no worries. Okay. Oh man, so they get to go first. Let's see if they're gonna get to kill somebody.
Well, we're gonna be dead right off the bat.
So the very first thing, they're gonna run in, and Elusa, they are coming for you. They seem like they have this just mindless rage. They're coming for you. These beasts want to attack you. And they move with this unnatural speed that is just terrifying. Oh, did I close down my my character sheet? Bummer. Well, I guess if they're open. All right, and so they are gonna try to get in on you and attack. But actually, they actually can't, because they were at short range, so they're gonna have to move in. Actually, they can take 2 maneuvers, so they can move in. But they can't attack you this round, but they are going to move in on you. So you're lucky in that round, in that regard, because I had forgotten I put them at short range. So now it's one of your turn slot. I assume that probably Elusa would make sense for you to go, but they are in engaged range at this point, which means that if you want to attack them with a spell, you're going to have to back up. Or I think you can probably let me just see actually if you use a attack spell. I wonder if you could do it at engaged range. Let me just take a look. Close combat may select a target, engage with your character, but it adds 1 difficulty. That is listed specifically different than range. So I'm going to say that if you want to do that in this case, your staff ability is not going to help you in this.
Okay. I think she would back up a little bit.
Okay.
And as she does, she can't back up probably that far.
I mean, you could go probably, if you wanted to use like 2 maneuvers to get down closer to Mariaris, where he was sort of hiding in the trees, you could do that, but you wouldn't be able to like take an action unless you wanted to spend some strain.
Okay. I think she's just gonna back up maybe to here.
Okay.
And as she does that, she those ball-like objects that was hanging that I described earlier that was in a net.
Mm-hmm.
And as she does that, she starts swinging it like a sling. And she launches it at these things.
Okay.
So let's see. So this is going to be an attack spell, and it is a something with like a fireball type blast. Like it breaks open and has, you know, I guess like a kind of like a.
Yeah, so you want to try to hit like all three of them essentially?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I'm
then
aiming for like the middle one, I guess, or like.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So okay, so you're gonna be at 2 difficulty then. 1 for your base magical attack, 2 because you're adding the blast quality. They're within short range, so that's okay. If you wanted to, if it's fire and you wanted to sort of like add, like make it a fire spell so that it adds the burn quality, you could do that as well.
Yeah.
But that would increase the difficulty up to 3. So it's up to you.
Okay. I will do that. And I will. I think my precision comes into play really well here. Brawl or range check. I can use cunning instead of brawn and agility.
Yes, that's true. You can. And so what I would do then is, in this case, well, no, because you're not necessarily making a ranged attack. You're making a spell attack, I think. So you would be using your spell modifier anyway, which I think is cunning.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because if you were making a potion that had those spell effects, and then you were just throwing it, that would be different.
Okay.
But in this case, it sounds like you're kind of, we'll go with it narratively in that you're kind of augmenting a potion that you have on the fly with magical energy. So mechanically, we're going to treat it as if you're casting a spell.
Okay.
What the burn, just so you know, the burn quality will allow it to do damage a number of round for an additional round if you want to add that burn quality.
I would definitely like to add that.
Okay. And keep in mind that when you are activating, to activate these additional effects, let me just double check really quick and make sure if it requires the same use of advantages. Because that I'm actually not sure on. Normally when you have weapon qualities like burn and blast, you activate them with advantages. But in this case, because you're increasing the difficulty, which is actually harder, I don't know that you have to do that. But let's see. Actually, you might still, because it would just be like adding them like a weapon. Because that part I don't know.
Yeah, it's a little...
Each effect has a difficulty increase at each. You may not add an effect if it would increase the difficulty beyond formidable, right? After effect can be added once unless since all actions require a check. There you'd have to suffer strain. Normal rules for performing a combat check on page 101. Select one target, short range, hold the attack. I'm just reading through the attack right now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, take your time.
Yeah, so it doesn't specify, so I'm going to say you still are going to have to activate those effects with advantages. So it may be worth your while to spend a story point to help increase your chances here. But let me just double check, because I believe stuff off the deck. Let a look. Probably going to be your weapon qualities. Let's see. Okay, here we go. All right, so we're going to look at qualities here. Active qualities require 2 advantages to activate, unless otherwise stated in their description. This is on page 86 of the core book. All right, let's see. Special qualities are generally either passive or active. Passive qualities are always on, require no activation. Active qualities must be triggered by the user, often spending 1 or more advantage to activate. Okay. All right, so what this will do then, all right, so I'm going to say that we will need to spend advantages to activate those additional effects. So the way your spell will work is you're going to if it hits, you will deal damage based on the ranks that you have in your primal skill, plus 1 damage for any success that you get.
Okay.
Yep, uncanceled success, right? And then with those
will allow me to add qualities.
To activate those qualities if appropriate. Okay. Yep. So did you want to add both the fire quality and the blast quality?
Yeah. Well, I definitely want the blast. Yeah, I'd like to add both if I can.
Okay, fantastic.
But
so
blast is the most important. So.
Yes, absolutely. And so did you did end up using a story point? Is that right?
I did, and
okay.
I guess I didn't need to, so...
No, that'll help you, certainly.
Okay.
So that's not a bad idea. Yeah, go ahead. All right, and whenever you are ready, go ahead and make an attack. I'm not going to add any boost or setback for right now.
For the attack, I just roll the primal then?
Yes. Yep, make a primal skill roll. Okay, so you were unsuccessful in your attack. However, let me just take a look because I believe the blast quality can still be activated. Just take a look here. Blast quality. If the blast quality doesn't activate the ordinance, blast. Okay. It says, however, the user may also trigger blast if the attack misses by spending 3 advantage. In this case, the original target and every target engaged with the original target suffers a hit dealing damage equal to the blast rating of the weapon. Interesting. Now, in that case, they would only suffer 1 damage, so it's not gonna work in this case. But interesting.
It is interesting.
So
I figure, she's like lets it loose and it falls short and lands maybe in front of them.
Yep. Yeah,
but can I use the advantages that the blast triggers, but it doesn't inflict damage, but it tears up the ground and makes it difficult for them to... Now they have sort of an obstacle?
Yeah, I would say that, sure, that you could do that. That basically what it does, well, yeah. So yeah, you could do that. You could create basically some tough terrain. Although I will tell you, and by the way, you did have to take 2 points of strain there for casting your spell. These things seem like, some of the creatures in the jungle, these have big paws, they have claws. They probably can move pretty well over tough terrain. So you can certainly do that if you want to, but remember that you can also spend some of that advantage to regain strain.
Right.
And you can potentially give like a boost to your next ally.
Right. Maybe since it's a miss and it's not really gonna it's not gonna do much anyway. Yeah, maybe I'll recover my strain.
Okay.
And that will leave a boost for actually, since there's 4, can I add a difficulty to the monster's next turn and an advantage to Jose's?
Yeah, sure. We could do that. I think that makes sense. Cool. All right. And so let's see. I think Okay. So Jose, right now you are still absolutely like terrified of these things. So I want you to make another discipline roll for me. Still against 3 difficulty, to see if you can overcome your fear. Otherwise, you're going to be cowering here. However, I am going to give you a boost dice to see if you can overcome that. Whenever you're ready to roll, go ahead. All right. Excellent. You have managed to overcome your fear of these things. Also seeing that your companion has kind of gotten near you a little bit. She's trying to press the attack here. These things are starting to move in, and there was this great explosion. How are you going to respond to this action? That did not take a maneuver, so you still have all of your maneuvers.
Well, he's gonna try to take a shot and see distance go down. So I would like to double aim and fire.
Double aim and fire. All right. So you've got they're at medium range, so you're gonna get 2 difficulty. You have let's see. You've got 2 boost dice for your double aim. They have ranged defense, so they are going to, you're going to get a setback dice for that. And then I'm going to use a story point to upgrade the difficulty a little bit. So go ahead and roll whenever you are ready.
Gotcha. And I got no points at this time, right?
What's that?
Just that I don't have any story points to spend.
Yeah, not yet, because I think I had all of them, and then it looks like they're going back. Did I use my story point? Story point, pool gems.
You used one on the...
Oh, I see what it's doing. Okay. Hold on. I got to use it on the other sheet. Oh, this is a pain. All right. Lame. There we go. All right.
Let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, yep. You go for it. Oh, baby. Look at that. 3 successes, 2 advantages. Wow. All right. So not enough to activate a crit. How much does your bow? 7, 8, 9, 10 damage. All right. That's awesome. So let's take a look and see. Yeah. So you managed to take out one of them. Go ahead and describe how that looks, what the scene is like.
They're probably, like scared to go forward because, the bomb she threw with the fire and stuff. And he sees one of them just moving his head around, and as he does that, he shoots, and like it gets stuck in his eye, and it just falls down.
Awesome. Yeah, and this thing goes down, and as it goes down, you see this black sort of blood and ichor coming out of it, and and as it hits the ground, it literally starts to seem to like burn the grass underneath it, like almost as if it's like some sort of acid or something gross. All the grass and the leaves and the underbrush, and at this point you'll notice that everything is starting to get dark, right? The sky is darkening. It seems like there's shadows and there's mist all over the place. You guys are definitely feeling like the pressure is just intensifying and intensifying and intensifying, right? And so mechanically what's going to happen here is there's going to be a setback dice for you guys right now because you have magic and because of this event is happening. And also behind you is all this screaming and whatever. Like the village people are, the villagers are just like, freaking out, right? The shaman is yelling, "Get to the boats, get to the boats." But these guys are going to press their attack. Miriaris, since you got them, they're going to leap over at you. They're going to attempt to attack you here. You have defense, right? How many points? One melee defense?
Yep.
All right. They are going to do that. I believe they had an additional setback die because of Kilusa's thing here. So they've got that. You're also distracted. So right now they're looking at 2. You're you're looking at 2. Yeah, sorry. All right, they've got a boost. They've got 2 setbacks, 2 difficulty. And let me switch over to my other sheet here. I'm going to upgrade it again, because why not, right? All right. But, of course, you've hurt them, and so they are down. Let's see. What do we want to do? I think this guy wants to try to get you with his tail. So they're going to come in, and you see they kind of circle around, and they both try to whack at you with their tail. But you manage to kind of sort of dodge out of the way as this big spiked tail's coming at you. However, unfortunately, what's happening here is you are, as they start to sort of back off a little bit, just barely a little bit, you notice that there's another intense pressure here, and you feel more like rending of the air, and you notice another group of these things has appeared a little further away. Yep. So that's what I used the 3 advantage that they got for, was to bring in another minion group here. But right now you got 2 of these guys alive. One of you guys can act next. What are you guys gonna do in this case?
Oh boy. Okay. I think Kalusa. So you said they're down. They're like.
So one of them died. There's 2 left here, and then you see another one, basically another group of these guys come and just ripping themselves out of this portal in the middle of the air.
The 2 that did not die are but they're doing some. What are they doing?
They're basically like, pawing at the ground and like ready to attack. These things are these demonic kind of creatures. They look bent on destruction.
Wow. Okay.
And they're focused on Kealusa because, on Mirajaris, because he attacked them and was and killed one of them.
Successful.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think. Sorry. So Kealusa takes her magic staff. And it's an engaged. So she closes on one of these things and attacks it.
Okay. Just straight up with your staff?
Yeah, I think so. So I'm trying to think about there's that attack spell, which would make sense.
Yeah, well, if you're going to try to use your spell, I would not get into engaged range. Because keep in mind that when you use an attack spell with your staff, you'll want to do it at you would probably want to do it at short range, or maybe even move, because you can you could move even further back and still get them at medium range. Without the penalty. That might be what I would do. I might recommend that you move.
That would make more sense.
Yeah, and then you can still attack them. And if you use an attack spell and it's successful, it deals an additional 4 damage because of that staff. Yeah.
So she moves back a little bit more and levels her staff at it. And she's going to use the attack spell. So I guess I should roll first, huh?
Well, first of all, describe what it is that you are thinking you want to do.
So what I'm thinking is that she's gonna channel lightning through this thing. So I imagine her like concentrating on pulling all the some energy from the earth and disturbance, and pointing her staff and kind of shooting lightning out of it at this thing.
Wow. Okay. And so Here's the thing. The cool thing about lightning is that it can also it can hit multiple targets. It basically adds the auto fire quality. So if you want to do that, if you want to use lightning, that in and of itself will add 1 difficulty. And then if you want to add the auto fire quality, potentially to be able to hit both of them at the same time, that would add 1 more difficulty. So you'd be at 3 instead of 4 because your staff negates the additional for range. So if you want to do that, hopefully getting your auto fire, you can. It would be against 3 difficulty.
Okay.
You want to do that?
Yeah, that sounds good. Yep.
Okay. You're still getting the 1 setback because of just all of the mental chaos that's going on around you. And Jose, you got. I forget on your last roll. Did you get advantage on it at all? Let me take a look. Miriaris. Yeah, you did. 2 advantages. How did you choose to spend those? I don't remember.
I did not. I guess I'll do the same thing as she did last time. 1 on them and 1 on her.
Okay, fantastic. So then let me add a boost to your check. And do you want to use any story points?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Give me a little bit of some fiction as to what circumstances give you an advantage that upgrades your attack.
Advantage. Because they are focused on him right now. And I think actually because this disturbance in whatever's going on that's causing this rift or whatever it is to open is like creating a lot of wild energy that's bouncing around that's really easy for her to tap into.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Cool.
All right, so that's my point.
So right now you've got 1 boost, 1 upgrade. You're looking at 3 purple difficulty and 1 setback dice.
And there was a boost too, right?
Yeah, you got a boost. Yep, I put that in there for you.
All right. So we're ready?
Yep, we're ready.
Come on, dice, be kind to me.
So you were successful. Oh, you know what? You rolled the wrong thing.
Oh.
Yeah, because you're not technically making an attack with your staff. You're making a magical attack, just happening to use your staff. So I would re-roll, but roll your primal skill.
All right. Oh boy, crap.
We'll take a look afterwards at the character sheet. We might be able to add that in. Oh, bummer. Did that? Yeah, that still added all your stuff. All right, so again, you were unsuccessful. Wow, but you got 4 advantages. Okay.
Okay, well, apparently that energy isn't so easy to tap into.
Yeah.
So I think I'm just gonna go the same route I did last time. Strain.
Clear 2 strain and then maybe put like a couple of setbacks on them.
Yeah.
All right, so maybe this is what happened, right? Your lightning, starts arcing from your staff, right? Maybe there's like a thunder overhead and you put your staff up in the air and like you see lightning just shoot out of the sky and like literally connect with your staff, and for a minute you're glowing, and then you like point it at them or whatever, right? And it arcs out of your staff, but they are nimble and manage to dodge out of the way a little bit of it. And also, like you said, because of this like swirling maelstrom of just chaos around you, you are able to not hit them, but it does create this like right in front of you. And so I'll say that they definitely have to like maneuver to kind of get near you. Now
maybe it blinds them a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, whoops. Yeah, there we go. And so Jose, Mirajaris is up next. What do you do?
All right, let's say this works. I want to use an attacking spell, but I want to use ice.
You want to use ice? Okay, fantastic. Let me take a look here. Is ice? Yeah, ice. Perfect. All right. So the attack gains the ensnare quality. Cool. I like that. Equal to your ranks and rating. All right, fantastic. So as it stands right now, they're within short range. You don't have to worry about range. You would have, just with doing that, you would have a difficulty of 2 purple. Are you thinking you want to do anything else to it?
Is there anything I can do to like making that, the difficulty not so high, or?
Unfortunately, not right now. You could use a story point to make it a little easier on you guys. But unless you have like an implement, like something like Chris had, that's how you do that. But right now, no, you'd be looking at that. However, I believe they are going to have, let's see, they've got 1, you gave them a setback. So since you're next, we'll give you a boost instead of using a setback for them. Do you want to do that? So you'll get a boost on this attack?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, I'm going to use a
Can I aim it or not really?
Yeah, you can aim, sure. You want to take an aim maneuver?
Yeah, I'll take aim maneuver.
Okay, absolutely. So right now you've got 2 boost dice. You're looking at... I used a story point to upgrade, so you're looking at 1 red and 1 purple. And you've also got a setback dice. 2 setback dice because of the craziness going on around you. So if you want, if you don't want to do anything else, you can roll. And in this case, you'll want to just roll your Arcana skill as opposed to a weapon attack. But did you want to use a story point as well or no?
Yeah, I might as well.
Okay, fantastic. So you go ahead and use that story point, and I'll give you an upgrade here. All right, and whenever you're ready, you go for it.
And I use my knowledge, right?
Nope, not knowledge. You'll use
Arcana.
literally your Arcana magic skill, yeah. Let's see what we get. Did you roll yet? Oh, there we go. Okay, it was just slow on
Let's
my
try
end.
and find that.
Nice. All right. So I don't believe. Let me just take a look at ensnare. Think still would need 2 to activate it. Take a look. Yeah. Okay. So you won't be able to enact the ensnare, unfortunately, but you hit them. How many ranks do you have in knowledge? 2?
2.
Okay, so you deal 4 damage to these guys because you deal 2 for your knowledge ranks and 2 because you have 2 uncanceled successes there. So let's see. That's not enough to take them out, but it definitely is enough to hurt them. And I think what we'll do is we might go 1 more round here, and then I'm going to call it. Because
Can I take a second maneuver to get closer to her?
Yes, you can. You can use your second maneuver, absolutely, to get in a little bit closer. All right, so they have 1 here. And this guy is going to move in here. You kind of move down here a little bit. These guys are looking kind of at you. They're seeing the 2 of you. You just hurt them again. So I think they're going to wait. They're going to form up here, and they're going to wait until they can attack as a group. And so for right now, they're going to take a defensive stance. And they're going to hold off their attack. So you guys get 1 more round here. What do you think you would like to do? At this point, you notice that the people in the village are screaming. They're terrifying, and you feel this intense bout of like psychic pressure, and this just enormous, huge, spined thing starts coming out behind you guys in the village itself. I mean, just absolutely massive. So, like, in game terms, it's a silhouette 3, which is like in Star Wars, like the size of a small starfighter. I think it's big. Yeah, it looks like.
Oh, holy wow.
Now, it's not necessarily near you guys, but it's in the village. And so the villagers, a few of them had managed to get on the boats, but the shaman starts like doing his thing and trying to like use the magic of the jungle to hold this thing off and get the people on the boats. These things are waiting, but they seem emboldened by these. And what I want you guys each to do actually is go ahead and each make another discipline check for me. Still against 3 purple. Because this is a whole new ball of wax right now. What I'll do though is I'll give you I will give you 1 boost dice on this because you guys are formed up together and they're not right next to you. And you seem like at least Jose's character has been somewhat effective in damaging these things. You know that they can be killed. And so whenever you're ready, go ahead and roll those for me. Oh.
What was it again?
Oh wait, hold on. We may need to change something here. Give me just a second. Nope. Sorry. Reroll.
Okay.
That's actually not as bad.
At least it's not failure.
I mean, it's still a failure, but it's not as bad of a failure. And then, yeah, Jose, if I can get a discipline roll from you.
Who cursed my dice tonight?
It's the curse of roll 20.
It usually treats me better than this.
Oh boy. Okay. So you guys are at this point, this new sense of fear, this new threat has come into the village. You see this. Mirajaris, your men are like in the village desperately trying to they're not even trying to attack these things. They're trying to get out. Like, this isn't their village. They don't care too much about these people. But they're not at all trying to get to you. Like, they're just trying to leave because they're terrified. You see these beasts now emboldened by this ginormous like creature that is kind of behind you. Here, I'll put him in here. If he shows up on the map, it's been my thing is really slow. But anyway, this thing, and you hear the screaming, and you start to see some of the villagers just getting ripped apart by this thing. And at this point, even though the sun has come up above the horizon, the world is dark. It's I mean, the sun is there, but it's red instead of orange, and it's behind this almost this shroud of shadow in a sense. And everything starts to feel infernally hot, unnaturally hot. It shouldn't be this hot this early in the morning, and yet it is. And the only thing that you can do at this point is flee into the jungle. You're just terrified, and you both take off, and you. And so I think that's where we're going to end this session officially tonight. But this was the beginning of the cataclysm, and these demonic forces have now entered the world. So before I end the stream here, hopefully, this was good in terms of character creation to kind of start to understand some of the nuances of the fantasy genre for Genesis. I thought it definitely helped me a little bit. And also, I think it was fun to just kind of play out a little scenario, see how the magic worked. I think, yeah, definitely, this was tough on you guys because the dice really weren't working, and you were upgrading them too. I noticed a lot of the time you guys did use the story points, so I think that was just a hard roll. But it's interesting to see how the magic works. I'm curious what your thoughts were on just the system and sort of the freeform nature of it. What did you think about that?
So I'm liking the freeform nature. I am liking that you don't have to sit there and decide spell and spell. It's a little confusing just yet.
Yep.
As how it works. I feel like we have a little more playing with it to do.
Yep.
But it does seem really flexible. I'm not sure how I feel now that we've played it a little bit. I'm not sure how I feel about the difficulty increasing for everything.
Yeah.
Because it kind of seems like it's taking it out of the realm of what our dice at this level can do. Like, but we'll see. I think we just need to play with it some more and
yeah.
see.
I think so. One thing to keep in mind with Magic is that they very intentionally made it more difficult because they don't want you to be able to accomplish something with magic just as easily as any other skill. Right. Magic is also supposed to be dangerous, right? And high stakes. But also keep in mind that in some cases, maybe it might be easier if you're not adding extra stuff to it. You know what I mean? So if you want a spell, you don't necessarily have to add the blast quality or whatever, but I think it was fun to do it in this case, just to see how it works. Yeah. But and I think also in character, it kind of makes sense to give you sort of an idea of your ability. How are you able to do this?
Right.
And how successful will you be?
I think maybe there's a little thought that needs to go into what does have one of these qualities.
Yeah.
What does it do? What's it look like? You know? So that's something to really think about.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Now that being said, had you hit with the attack from your staff, that whatever, like you're looking at, 6 damage base, and then any uncanceled successes, you're gonna get even more. So that's pretty potent when you think about it. Like that staff is pretty, and
just connect.
Yeah. And I think what we'll do, and you'll want to take a look at some point, Chris, in the Terrinoth book for the heroic abilities and see if there are any in there that would make sense. Because I think what I would do for the next round would be to add heroic abilities, and this will be a little bit later on in the storyline. So
I actually had one picked, and I'd be really curious to see. Like, I'd almost like to just do another little encounter just to see how it would change things.
What was it?
It was Unleashed.
Okay.
I forget what page those are on.
Let me take a look. Unleashed is hard to kill, 6th sense, signature weapon. Unleash. Okay. So it's 78 on the Terrinoth book. When pushed to the breaking point, or maybe just when they want to show off, your character unleashes their full abilities, laying low any who oppose. He achieves flurry of blows, weapons, and surge of magical energy. Okay. Base. When ability is active, your character may perform a maneuver once per round on their turn to immediately defeat one minion group within short range. Holy crap.
Right?
What?
And then
a little bit OP.
Well, it's supposed to be, right? I mean, because it is a heroic ability. I
might look at some others too, but that was one that fit to me, like who she is. And the other one I had looked at was
actually, you can just do that every round just for the cost of a.
Paragon.
Wait a minute. Yeah, Paragon. You select this primary ability effect, choose a skill.
Which might actually be handier because of the.
But before resolving the result, you may. Oh wow! Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So it would. So it'll only apply if. Okay, after the roll, but still, that's interesting. Okay. Ignore the symbols shown on that die when resolving the check. Okay. Wow. Interesting. Yeah, that's a good one. I'm so curious. Holy crap. Heroic abilities are quite powerful, so there are some pretty significant limitations on when you can use them. However, as you'll see on page 79, one of the ways you can customize your heroic ability is by spending ability points to reduce these restrictions. By default, activating hero ability requires you to spend 2 story points. Okay. Okay, all right, that's a little better. The effects of the heroic ability last until the end of your character's next turn, and you can only activate it once per session. Okay. Unless stated otherwise in the description.
Once per session.
Once per session, 2 story points.
Plus, you have to have 2 story points to use.
Yeah, but damn, like that one,
right?
Defeat a minion group, like,
yeah,
that's insane because you could do that, and it's only at a maneuver cost. So, like, you could do that, defeat a minion group. If there were multiple minion groups on the scene, then you could still make an attack against another minion group. Or you could, get the hell out of Dodge if you wanted to. Like, that's cool.
It's pretty neat. It's a pretty neat one. And it just kind of fit with the primal thing.
Yeah. Did that say?
I felt like those were the only 2 that fit her at all.
Right. Did that say once per session? Yes, once per session. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, interesting. All right. That's cool. I like that. Yeah, so definitely consider that. But other than that, I think, can you kind of see how spell crafting would work in the sense that you're like, okay, because like it was cool because you guys brought in fire, lightning, and ice all in this, one area, and like you can't do that in D&D. Like you have spells and that's it,
Right. Yeah, you can't. I like that you can pick things that fit.
Yeah.
What you're doing, and that it feels more like I think magic would be.
Yeah.
If magic existed, that to me is what it would be like.
Yeah.
I've always had this idea in my head that it's more and it's always bugged me that it's like, oh, you have this and this and this and this, and by the way, you have to study it all the time, and
right.
This has never made sense. So this makes more sense to me. It feels more and the fact that it's primal fits, right? Because it just seems more like it's a gut reaction thing you do in relation to what's going on around you.
Yeah, for sure. Nice.
Really cool.
Jose, how do you feel about like sort of the fantasy character and the fact that you were sort of able to create a character basically like a ranger, if you kind of think about like a ranger from D&D, but I feel like with a little bit more utility, right? Like, I mean, in terms of what types of spells you could cast, like, you got a lot of options. You might not be very good at it, but you can, do it.
No, I definitely thought it was a lot of fun. I mean, it's not that, the ice thing didn't go off, but I was looking through the book and I noticed that I could use like barriers and utility spells and stuff. So I'm like, that's pretty neat. I just gotta get used to that. But I was definitely enjoying it.
Nice. Yeah, I think that there's like a lot of potential for this system. I think magic, I just from me kind of observing it and adjudicating it, I think it's really cool. I think it's a really good way of doing it because it kind of gives you that feel of like that old world of darkness mage, the Ascension type magic system where it's very free form, but it's not as weird. Like you can see the structure here. There's a lot of structure, right? And so it's interesting because it's like, this is where it's crunchy, but also narrative. You know what I mean? Like there's a formula that you follow, but at the same time, I feel like the structure actually kind of helps in this case because it helps narrow your focus. So you're not just like, oh, I can do anything. It's like, well, I can, but I got to kind of be strategic about it.
No, I like it. It's definitely fun. We just gotta play it more and figure it out better.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it'll be interesting. I forgot. I was totally going to bring in, I forgot to use, when you rolled advantages, I was going to bring in a militia group to help you guys fight, and I just forgot to do it. So, oh well. Yeah, they would have helped rush in and whatever, but
I like how like whenever you said that we had like one more attack or something, and you have brought the second group, I saw that I could conjure shit. I was gonna conjure something, and then I was gonna take off running.
Oh yeah, I mean, but that's the cool thing, right? It's like you have so much freedom in what you. So if you're thinking about it, you're like, oh man, wouldn't this be cool if like there was like, I don't know, a swarm of like, you know, jungle creatures or something that just all of a sudden, you know, starts getting in the way, and you could do that. And then the next round you're gonna like, oh, I'm gonna blast them with an ice bolt or something, you know, and like, and then the next round it's like, oh, I'm gonna heal somebody, you know. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
that was cool.
That's super cool. You know, one thing I noticed is I was looking at the page 215 of the core book.
Yep.
And so like for lightning, it said the attack gains stun quality with rating equal to the character's ranks in knowledge.
Yep.
That's like pretty, and there's a bunch of stuff like that, right? That it's attached to your, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and the auto fire quality. That's why, yeah. Which auto fire is great. Well, the auto fire. Well, so no, because the way with auto fire, you actually added 2, right? Because lightning, if you just add lightning, but you don't add the auto fire quality, it's 1. But if you add the auto fire quality, it's actually a 2 difficulty. Yeah, but that auto fire is insane. Like if you can pull that off, then you basically you could damage like an additional target. So yeah,
that is so cool.
Yeah, it's insane. You must use the difficulty to use auto fire, because auto fire increase difficulty to attack checks by 1, may trigger multiple times to generate additional hits. Yeah. So for example, if you had auto fire and you hit, and let's say you also generated 4 advantage, it's 2 advantage to activate auto fire. So you could potentially, you hit the first target, you use 2 advantage to hit the next target, you use the next 2 advantage to hit a third target, and they all take the whatever the damage is. So auto fire is insane, but that's why. But it's a cost, right? Because it's that additional difficulty, and you still have the
deadly is really cool too.
Yeah. Yeah, because that would, what is deadly? That one increases.
Yeah, it's a crit rating of 2.
Yeah. And gains the vicious quality with a rating. Holy crap.
Equal to the character. So that'd be.
Yeah, so that's.
Plus the 2. And that's for 1 additional difficulty. That's pretty powerful.
So if you think about it, even if you're only dealing, I don't know, let's say 4 damage on your attack, maybe you get through their soak, because that's the thing, you still have to get through their soak, and that's where it's hard. But assuming you get through their soak, you're looking at a crit on 2 advantage with a plus 20 if you have a 2 rank in. Yeah, and you could do that at potentially first level. I mean, or not first level, but you know what I mean, like starting character. Like that's brutal.
That is amazing. Tier 1, I guess, right?
Tier 1, yeah. So it's, but I you know, I like the way that this works because neat, yeah, non-lethal, you can do stun damage, primal only, you can do close combat, you can add the blast quality. Yeah, that's amazing.
Actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then I think the only other thing is just how the staff is supposed to work.
Yeah, so I think the staff...
That was a little confusing.
Yeah, the way I read it was that the staff added 4 damage to a magical attack because the staff is essentially like a magical focus, right? It's an implement that you use to aid you in your spell casting. So so the way it would work is if you're channeling it through your staff, it gives you basically a free range increment, which is really cool. So you can automatically hit targets at medium range without additional difficulty. Which, if you think about it, basically what you're getting is, what is it, a 2? How's damage work? 2. So it's ranks in your knowledge skill.
Knowledge.
Plus 4 for the staff is 6. Plus, you're going to have at least 1 success. So you're going to be dealing 7 damage. If you're dealing it at short range, you're dealing that on 1 difficulty. No, even at medium, you could do it at 1 difficulty instead of 2. So that's basically like 7 damage is like a heavy blaster pistol in Star Wars, I think.
Wow.
But at 1 difficulty for medium range instead of 2. Yeah.
That's wow.
And then you can add all that other shit to it if you wanted to, right? So a staff is powerful. Now, I suspect...
Well, I didn't entirely understand how to attack with it, though, because it says range is engaged.
Yeah, so the staff itself...
Like, do they expect you to hit them with it and transfer...
No, because... No. So a staff as a melee weapon is engaged range, right? Because you're using it as melee.
Okay.
But in this case, the qualities that we were talking about were strictly as a focus for your spells. Yeah, and those are at range.
Okay.
Yep. So, so that's how that. So what we might do is at some point we can look at the sheet because you can put in custom skills, right? And so you could put in a spell attack, like you could put in an attack that uses your Arcana skill, or sorry, your Primal skill instead of ranged. Right? Because it tells you what skill is it based off of. And for damage, you could put 6 base, right? Because 4 plus 2 knowledge. So your damage would be 6. You'd put there would be no crit because you don't get a crit on those unless you
here it is.
add a quality.
Primal.
Yeah. So you could put it in a weapon, like you could say, magic attack as a weapon, right? And then and then that way you could just roll that attack. That might be the way to do it if you're using your staff. Yeah.
That would make sense. Yeah. Because all the other stuff just depends on what your roll outcome is. So then you add that stuff after you see what you've got.
Yep, exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So the only problems that I see with it right now in terms of the magic system is until you get proficient with the system and how it works and how the magic system works, it can be quite slow. Like I feel like we were having to dive into the meta a lot to really talk about.
We expected that.
Yeah, which is okay. And for me, I fully expect that with this system anyway. Like I don't think that the narrative dice system is a system that you can play if the type of game that you like is that heavily in character all the time immersive role play, because the system doesn't allow you to do that. The system requires you, the player, to play with the mechanics as opposed to you, the character, just doing your thing, right? So you jump back and forth, but like you like to use story points and to say, okay, this is how I'm going to build my spell. It requires a certain amount of meta discussion. But I think as we get more proficient with it and we, eventually you're going to be like, okay, boom, yeah, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna create, I'm gonna cast this fireball, and I'm gonna do it at medium range, and we're just gonna be like boom, 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 go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's hard.
I'll play with this combat skill section.
Yep.
Or no, the magic power. It's the magic power. Oh well, but it does have that under. Yeah, no. The combat skill actually has where you could put in the magic.
Yep. Yeah, so you could put it in roll
magic
20.
skill primal, and yeah. So
Yeah.
oh wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, Zombie, if you're not yeah, that's one of the problems with this system. If you're the kind of player that really more enjoys as much as you can a fully in character role-playing experience, this system can be really difficult with that, because I feel like that would take a lot more skill than I have as a GM to know how to do that. And as a player, it's difficult to get that a lot. Star Wars is a lot of fun. If you enjoy Star Wars, I mean, I play Genesys the same way I play Star Wars, so I don't know. But I mean, you could do this without buying the books. You just hack Edge of the Empire to play and use the Force skills to do stuff. But yeah, it just depends on the type of role play experience you want. This one's much more of like I don't like to use the word narrative, but that's the only term I have for it. But it's very gamey in the sense that you interact with the mechanics, in that way.
But then at the same time, you have these, like when we're on a roll and we kind of know.
Yep.
Then we have those long stretches sometimes of a lot of role-playing interaction, which is really cool.
Yeah, and for me, the thing that's cool about it is because of the way the dice work and the fact that you have advantages and you have threats, and we didn't get any triumphs or despairs at all in this game, which was too bad, because I was trying. But what's cool about that is that although you're kind of jumping out of character a little bit, because now it's you as the player describing the bigger narrative of the scene itself. For me, that's my kind of role playing, so that's what I like. But it's, you have to like that type of role playing, otherwise this system is going to feel really gamey. Yeah, he says, I like games that are rules light and when the rules support storytelling. Yeah. This one isn't exactly rules light. It's weird because it can sort of play rules light, but yeah. So Faith,
I mean, it's certainly not like crazy crunchy like Shadowrun or something.
Yeah, true. Yeah. It's interesting. He says, Fate's a good example. Fate is really interesting because, to me, if you're playing Fate very mechanically, it gets real gamey, because you're like, okay, yes, all right, so I put this boost on the scene, and then you have to define the boost, and what does it do? And then you've got two uses of it, and so you start getting all up in the meta of it. But so it's sort of like this game in that sense. The difference is, though, that this one is a lot more structured, and it isn't as free form in the sense that with Fate you kind of have to make up all that stuff using actual words and terms. But what's funny is, with me, when I've played Fate, the best Fate games that I had, we almost didn't touch the rules at all. And then it felt weird because I'm like, that we're not playing Fate, but it was cool. So yeah, so I don't know. I mean, if you like Fate, I think, and you play Fate a little bit more by the rules, I feel like you would probably like this system, but it's got a lot more structure to it. I haven't played Fate in a long time, just because I feel like you have to have the right GM to run it. That being said, the best Fate game I ever played was Ninja Turtles on what the heck is Alan's channel? Check for Traps on YouTube. Man, if you, Chris or Jose, did you guys see that game, by the way?
I didn't. I watched a little bit of the very beginning, and
Yeah.
Ninja Turtles just isn't my thing,
They weren't
so
your
I
thing, yeah.
didn't watch.
Oh,
I
it
don't
was
know
so
if I
much
was in
fun.
the group at that point. So.
Oh man, it was so cool. You should watch it. It was great. Well, if you like Ninja Turtles, that is. Check for traps. That was bananas.
I played a He-Man game with him. That was fun.
A He-Man game, you said?
Yeah, it
Oh, sweet.
wasn't Fate. It was that the engineer thing, the expedition thing that Jeremy came up with. But it was.
Oh yeah. His own thing. Yeah, that's cool. Nice. Yeah. Well, the expedition engine, I guess. Nice. And lately, I've been into indie systems that are built for very specific settings, like Patrol or Blood and Honor. That's cool. Yeah, I kind of dig Dungeon World a little bit for fantasy, but Powered by the Apocalypse is sometimes hard to get my brain wrapped around. Cool. All right. Well, so yeah. So I think what we should do, guys, is we should definitely play more of this because obviously, I mean, I friggin' love Genesis, and I'm going to continue to do that. I would love to see Anthony and Rory and their takes on fantasy characters, and I know Anthony has been a little bit hesitant on Genesis and fantasy, because I know for him it's like 5e that's what we use for fantasy. So I'd like to see if I can convert him into the gospel of Genesis. But that'd be fun, I think, to see. And I mean, obviously, Corey, I mean, he couldn't make it tonight, which is too bad, but oh well. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see it, more of a high pace, like the kind of, games that I normally run. But in fantasy, I think it can handle it really well.
Yeah.
I mean, Chris, did you use any of your talents, by the way? Did any of them come into play this?
They did not end up. Oh wait, I used no. I tried to use precision, but it ended up not being a range check. So no, I guess I did not.
Yeah, that's true. That's hard because when it's weird, right? Because it's like you're making an attack, and you are making a ranged attack.
Yeah.
But you're not making. The way I see precision, oh man, I'll have to look at that because maybe that could apply with magic, but it didn't read like it did.
Right. Well, so what's interesting is that the staff has one of the qualities is that the first range effect added to the spell does not increase difficulty. So that does imply that it's a ranged, and you are attacking at range, right?
Yeah.
So
so it is a ranged attack.
So
but you're not using it. Yeah, I would probably rule that you could do that.
So it probably should have come into, but then the one I tried to use it on was thing, right?
What's that?
I think when I tried to use it was it when I used staff? I don't remember now. I already forgot.
Yeah, I
think I tried to use it too when I threw because I guess I think of anything that is being propelled through the air as being ranged, right? But
yeah, I mean, I think that could work. I could see how that would make sense. That it would work with the precision skill. I mean, it's sort of weird.
I realized that primal is that anyway. So
right.
Where it would probably really help me is like wanted to chuck a spear or something like that.
Yeah, that
so
I mean,
might need to re-look at that the ranged the melee that it gave me. Maybe there was reason because I think the spear in here is in as a heavy.
Oh,
Um,
so that's interesting. Take a look. I think in Terrinoth, well, no, in Genesis, in the core book, I think it lists a spear, a light spear.
oh, there's
As
both. So there's a
yeah,
heavy and a light. So
yeah.
maybe.
I think in the core book there's only one spear. So I'm wondering if you were looking at the skill, or sorry, the gear list from Terrinoth, because in Terrinoth there are two.
Yeah,
There's
there's
a heavy
two.
spear and a light spear. Yeah. And but in the core book there's only one, and it's a light spear. So that's something to keep in mind.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because I was looking at that, and I gave the militia guys that I set up that light spear, so they used ranged light, or sorry, melee light. But I think the light, I don't know if the heavy spear does, but the light spear also has the accurate quality, which
Accurate,
means that
yep.
you can get a boost on it when you're attacking. And
Right.
I would say you could throw it too.
That might not be a bad. Maybe I stick with light, but yeah, I don't know. I guess I need to think about that. What did I end up putting my weapon? Oh, I did a dagger because I couldn't figure out really what to do.
Right.
Um.
I
So
also
yeah,
I was thinking about it at first, and I was like, oh man,
and the
this.
light has defensive and accurate.
Right, yeah, it does. So if you're using it, if you're holding it in your hand, you can parry blows with it,
Use
which
it
is
like I would a
nice.
staff.
Yeah. What's well, so that's why, like, those militia had the spear, they had a shield, and they had I think they had armor that gave them defense as well. So they had like a 3 melee defense. It's insane.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like, let me pull them up here. Character sheet. 2. Nope, sorry, it was just a 2. They had their light spear, and then they had the shield as well. But like, but with you guys as elves, if you carried a shield and had a spear, and you had your what is it, nimble, that's 3 defense, that's 3 setbacks on any melee attack against you. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What
So
did the nimble? We didn't even use that, did we?
I
did.
I may have forgotten about it. So
I know I forgot
yeah,
about it.
I totally probably forgot. So I'll have to write that down next time, because yeah, that's hard to remember. But like, yeah, I should have probably added a couple more setbacks on those attacks against you guys. Crazy. All right.
Anyway, very
Well,
cool.
yeah. Well, I think I'm gonna call it a night. I am going to hopefully get back. I might try to do some, I don't know, maybe I'll do a little something tomorrow, but I might try to jump on here Tuesday or Wednesday. I might do a little Overwatch. So Jose, if I'll send you a message see if you're free. Maybe we can do something. But although I don't know if we can you play in quick play even if you're a higher rank?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, maybe we'll do that, and we'll see. And then I think the next thing that we're gonna do officially is June 3rd with the next session of Edge of the Empire, the Sunday Sandbox. So Sunday, June 3rd, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Nice.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you guys for playing. Hopefully this will be entertaining and interesting for people to watch. And probably what I'm going to do is in the next week or two, I'm probably going to edit this and put an edited version up on YouTube. With probably some screenshots and annotations to help with some of the stuff. So anyway, keep an eye out for that, and check back on the channel hopefully on Tuesday or Wednesday for some Overwatch. Or if I can't play Overwatch, I'll probably play StarCraft 2. Nah. All right, take it easy.
Thank you, Sam.